Major controversy over disaster relief for Helene has, people are pretty pissed off because Kamala Harris shows up and she says, don't worry, your lives are destroyed, your cities are gone, your trucks are buried in 2 feet of mud, but we got $750 for you. That'll help, right? Well, a lot of people are pissed off saying, no, it won't. And they're wondering why this is happening. Well, what the fact checkers are saying is, guys, the cap for disaster relief has always been $750. Major controversy over disaster relief for Helene has...
You're interrupting yourself. It's crazy.
Absolutely interrupting myself. It's because we're multi-streaming. But don't worry, we're allowed to make mistakes when we're trying things out, so you guys have to bear with it. But if you're watching on X, shout out. That's why that happened. But I muted it. We're good. Anyway, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by Tim Pool... Kamala Harris has offered up, the Biden administration, $750, and that's the cap. Now, people are pissed off because billions of dollars, $1 billion, according to the GOP, was given to illegal immigrants. And many people, they're saying this is ridiculous that such a low amount of money would be given to these poor Americans. But don't worry, the News Corporation, all the corporate press said, but that's normal. That's what you get. Doesn't change the fact that we are spending hundreds of billions on foreign war, that we are giving illegal immigrants thousands of dollars to buy or rent homes. Maybe we should change this. So we'll talk about that big controversy. Donald Trump says that he has deep concerns about his security coming up with the next Butler rally. He says they're not treating us too well, so we will see. Big news, the port strike is officially over. Technically, it's being postponed. All the workers are going to get back to work, which is good news for Democrats because we are in the election cycle. And then, of course, there are private citizens trying to render aid to the victims in the path of Helene, and the police are stopping them. The government is stopping them from doing it. I'm seeing these posts where people say, as much as you think you hate the government, it's not enough. So we're going to get into all of that stuff, my friends. But of course, before we do, head over to preservegold.com/Timpool. Financial experts are urging Americans to prepare now. With inflation soaring, a border crisis affecting cities and small towns, and warnings of a recession, my friends, we are living in insane, unpredictable times. To protect your retirement accounts and 401ks, you should strongly consider physical gold and silver. Right now, Preserve Gold has an exclusive offer for my viewers where you get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase as well as a free guide. Text TIM to 50505. Learn more or visit preservegold.com/Timpool. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews, millions of dollars in trusted transactions with happy clients. And I want to give a shout out to our super chatters as well, who after I read the ad a couple days ago started super chatting about how, dude, legit, you should consider gold and silver because everything's getting crazy right now. And it's good, right? Also, don't forget, my friends, our new song is out and today is the last day. We are currently number 4 on iTunes, which is a huge spike. We've been slowly climbing this past week. You know, normally when we do releases, I would promote them over the weekend. This time, we were at the Rescue the Republic rally, so we started on Monday. But my friends, this song, Coming Home, featuring Phil Labonte and by Timcast, you can go to getcominghome.com. For those of you that said, I ain't getting iTunes, I can't get it on iTunes, well, you can go to getcominghome.com and pick up the song on Amazon. The reality is, the ratings agencies may not even track Amazon, but I still would appreciate it if you guys purchase the song, if you really do like it and want to support our work and you appreciate the message. This is the last day. So we're hoping to have a big impact and send a message that people care about independent art, that we are challenging the mainstream establishment industries. And we made a song and we hope to sell it. Don't forget to also head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, because we're going to have that members only show coming up for you at 10 p.m. tonight. And I learned this just recently because we're starting to take the audio version of this podcast seriously. So for those that are listening on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, I apologize for neglecting you for so long. Please consider giving us a good rating because despite the fact that we have 1 million unique listeners on this podcast, we only have like 7,000 ratings because we've, admittedly neglected that. What do I know? I don't know. I'm a YouTube guy. So anyway, smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with everyone you know because it's the greatest show ever. At least that's what I've been told. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Dallas Sonnier.
Thanks for having me back.
Like Kanye.
Back 2.5 years.
In a while.
Back in action.
Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm Dallas Sonnier, movie producer at Bonfire Legend. I have an exclusive deal with the Daily Wire. Executive produced Am I Racist, which is out in theaters now, crushing it.
Way to hit it out of the park,
yeah,
man.
Thanks.
So good.
Produced What is a Woman, Lady Ballers, Terror on the Prairie, Shut In, Run, Hide, Fight, and the upcoming Pendragon cycle, which is Daily Wire's first scripted series. And it's a blast. I mean, I get to do all the fun stuff that I used to do in Hollywood, and I don't have to talk to any of the crazies.
As soon as I saw Am I Racist, I'm like texting Dallas, like, bro, come on the show. That was so good. Yeah. Amazing work.
Thank you for sitting in the front row.
I had to, because it was tough. They were all like 90% capacity, and I was like, at this point, as long as I can sit next to Allison, we'll take what we can get.
It's the great thing about the release, though, is because you got to sort of have that communal experience with like-minded individuals. I mean, that's the brilliance of the.
You know what it was? Sitting in a theater watching Am I Racist, and I'm in D.C.
Yeah,
and there's like pride flags everywhere outside at all these places.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I see that it's packed, and I'm thinking like, all right, I mean, this is a good sign, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that everybody was laughing at what we know to be absurdities makes you feel good.
If the left had known, they could have destroyed the whole theater and all 150 DC, conservative or libertarians.
I think they liked the film. I saw a lot of liberals actually praising it, being like, you got to hand it to them. These people are grifters.
That's right.
So it should be fun. We got Libby hanging out. Thanks for hanging out, Dallas.
I'm Libby Emmons with the Post Millennial. I'm hanging out. Glad to be here.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm also hanging out. Why don't we get started?
Let's roll. We got the story from the Post Millennial. Biden-Harris administration offers $750 each to victims devastated by Hurricane Helene. The Democratic candidate was relentlessly mocked on social media over the low amount being offered to American taxpayers. The Biden-Harris administration announced $750 would be distributed to residents in states ravaged by Hurricane Helene. The federal assistance will be provided through FEMA, and those who need immediate relief can apply for financial aid at their earliest convenience. Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic presidential nominee, made the announcement during a visit to Augusta, Georgia, a city that sustained catastrophic damage from the hurricane. Now, I'm actually really, really pissed to hear this, and I kind of went off early this morning because of the exorbitant amount of money that we've been giving to illegal immigrants, that we've been giving to Ukraine. And I've been ranting over the past 2 weeks, actually longer, but pretty harsh in the past couple of weeks, how Gen Z has been left holding an empty bag when we're supposed to be leaving them behind, this country and reins of control, as they're now moving into their early 20s. They should have families. They should have homes. But every step of the way, it's money for wars, but nothing for the poor. Gen Z, they're coming into the workforce saying we can't even get apartments. How are we supposed to get jobs? Then you see the disaster, and they're like, we got $750 for you. Take a look at this from Newsweek. FEMA tapped out for hurricane recovery as GOP points to $1 billion spent on migrants. Surprise, surprise. Republicans called out this spending after Secretary Mayorkas remarks that FEMA was meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have, while adding that the agency did not have enough funding to make it through another hurricane this season. Quote, this is easy. Texas Governor Greg Abbott posted on X, Mayorkas and FEMA immediately stopped spending money on illegal immigration resettlement and redirect those funds to areas hit by the hurricane. Put Americans first. How about Ukraine too?
I would say that would be totally reasonable, right? They're saying they'll spend maybe tens of millions of billions of dollars on this recovery, but how much have we spent on foreign wars? In foreign assistance this year? It seems crazy. I mean, if you are the average American whose home has been destroyed by these devastating hurricanes and floods, it's hard for me to think that you are now looking at Zelensky going to meet with Putin or not Putin, with Biden or Harris and saying, yes, he deserves the money more than I do.
The other thing, too, is that you see FEMA has given over $600 million in assistance to illegal immigrants to host, for example, a welcome center in San Diego for illegal immigrants. $20 million for that was in April. And it's illegal immigration funding by FEMA all over the country. But for Americans, you've so little. And as an American, I find that infuriating. I pay a lot of money in taxes. And you look out and you think, like, I want roads and I want schools and I want, help for my fellow Americans when they really, really need it. And instead, they're giving away Xboxes in New York. They're giving away hotel rooms for free. They're giving away cell phones at the southern border. They're giving away cash cards. They're giving all this money in rental assistance for illegal immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, and people can't afford the rent because the rent gets artificially jacked up because the government can pay for it. They're giving down payment assistance in Washington State. All of these different things that you see being given out to people who are not our countrymen. And I think that that's a place where certainly Americans, regardless of race or language or gender or, unicorn status or whatever, can come together and agree like Americans should come first.
Well, and the timing of this is so terrible. I mean, we've had, a really, really bad run over the past year. All the liberal pundits can tell you that the economy's great and the GDP this, but the inflation is so high that nobody can afford anything. And these are very red counties across red states that are hit. Going into the election, what does that do for people to vote in such a short time period when they're not in their homes and all that kind of stuff? And just the economics of the sort of average middle class or lower American has been struggling for so long, and now to have this, it's devastating. That's really tough.
Do you think that this is something Americans will be thinking about in November? I've heard a lot of people say, the paperwork, some of the recovery efforts will basically settle in. The money will reach the people in the next 6 weeks. And that really is right about the election. Or is this going to be something that sort of Americans who aren't affected kind of turn their eyes away from and forget about? Because we are, unfortunately, apt to do that.
Yeah, I think that I think Americans will be thinking about it because I think in a lot of ways what's going on now in these southern states shows the disastrous impact of entrenched bureaucracy. So one thing that I was seeing today on social media was a post from someone who was saying like, oh, and you had this firefighter. So there have been people, citizens, volunteers who have resources, like a guy with his own helicopter. And he was going into the mountains of North Carolina. He was actually rescuing people and taking them down the mountain. He gets down the mountain. So this firefighter, he sees somebody needs rescuing. He goes up the mountain. It's him and his son in his helicopter. They're both volunteer firefighters, right? So like skilled people. They take the wife of the family. They bring her down the mountain. They leave the son behind because you can only put 2 people in. So he gets down and the law enforcement there, the fire department, they're like, we're going to arrest you if you keep doing this. And he's like, well, now I left my son up there and there's another guy up there. And eventually he had to go get his son and leave the guy stranded. With the idea that like the law enforcement would go get the guy perhaps in a few hours. And what you have is the local law enforcement saying you're screwing up our operations. There's another report of somebody saying, FEMA doesn't let you just bring in supplies and distribute them because they have vendors. They have preferred vendors. And of course, every government across the country has a preferred vendors list and you submit to be one of the preferred vendors. And they have quota systems. So you have to check off your various identity boxes to be one of the preferred vendors so that they have the right numbers of all of the different racial boxes checked. Wow. And that's a big thing that happens. And that's at every locality in the country, I'm sure of it, right? That's all over the place. And so you're seeing if a volunteer firefighter from wherever who's got his own helicopter and his kid who's a junior in high school who's also a volunteer firefighter, if they can't go in and help fellow citizens because the government says you're getting in the way and the government says we have our preferred contractors, you can't deliver these supplies, that shows the lie of big government. That shows that big government cannot be a partner in your life and probably should be dismantled in a very large way.
It's kind of terrifying, the authoritarian takeover that happens when you face a disaster. Mm-hmm. That because of a hurricane, not only do you lose everything, but the government comes and asserts authority over your property. We saw this in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. People weren't allowed back into their properties. There was one guy who was barred from his home and he wanted to go see if it had any value. The fire's done. And when he went in, they arrested him. Forcefully threw him down in his own house. And they said, you're not allowed to be here anymore. It's like, but it's your land. Doesn't matter. Your house burned down, therefore you're out. And now that's actually a big component of the story, which we will get to because Elon Musk has got comments about this. There's a firefighter that was trying to rescue people, and they bar people from coming in. So only they get to move in. But don't worry. I know. But they do have $750 for you.
Good.
Maybe you can get a couple weeks, maybe a week's worth of groceries for your family with that.
What I love is that the people who really need this $750 have to apply for it online, but there isn't any internet because there isn't any power.
No. Did you see that one story? I can't remember which county. I think it was in Tennessee. There was like a big central area where people were signing this tarp to say like, I am alive, like because they don't know where their relatives are because there's no cell service, there's no internet. So they're completely isolated in already challenging geographic areas that are now devastated by this waterlog. I think it's fascinating that when people need them most, the government is the most likely to abuse its power, right?
Right, and to get in the way.
Yeah, and so you have this dynamic where people aren't getting the things they need. So many people want to help. And I actually understand when they say, like, if you're a sheriff of a local area and you're like, please don't drive down here in your Prius with the best of intention to get stuck in the mud. Like, I understand those ones. But, I really feel like the Biden administration has used, we don't want to interrupt emergency services, and that's why we're not traveling down right now. That's why Harris isn't going. Biden's going to wait a couple days as an excuse for being like, no, we're working really hard, and also we don't want to go. When we know that there are people who do not feel like they are getting the aid they need.
Biden could have done a flyover. That wouldn't have been a problem for him to do. And the thing, too, that you see, it's not just, if there's anything that Americans like to do, Americans like to help each other. And we see that with Governor Ron DeSantis sent a bunch of help, up to North Carolina. And you have the government saying, no, you can't help each other. That's not crazy. Something that Americans take kindly to. And if you look there was several years ago that the government really started saying, don't come help, just send money. So they also want us to send money to these NGOs that then abuse that money and use that for their nefarious purposes as well.
We're going to test this theory soon because one of my fraternity brothers lives in Asheville and his community was destroyed. So he fled to Atlanta and we helped him we financed him to rent a U-Haul, filled it up with Costco supplies, and he's going back.
Well, do report back.
I mean, yeah, the $750 is going to be gone in a week. I mean, that's not going to cover anything. It's not going to cover rent.
No.
And then also, it's going to last for a long time. I mean,
roads
water damage and all this kind of stuff. Fort Myers is still dealing with it in Florida.
Asheville officials were saying it's going to take, I think, up to 2 weeks at least to get the water back on.
Of course.
I mean, that's a long time, especially if someone is trapped somewhere or, unable to find any kind of resources or support. Like, it becomes critical very rapidly. I don't fault, local governments for struggling to get the water back on. There was serious damage. On the other hand, the federal government stepping in and saying, well, we're going to be in charge here because we know best doesn't seem like it's really working.
I'm going to, for political reasons, step back halfway. And actually, I'm kind of okay with this for a little bit. Now, look, let's be serious. The people in North Carolina and Georgia deserve everything. And this is what we do as members of a family, of a community, of a country. We take care of each other, like you were mentioning with DeSantis sending supplies. I have seen good people on X that I follow who are news commentators and pundits doing everything, even going down there. Shout out to Nick Sorter, who had posted that he was providing Starlink so he can get people connected and get those communications. Robbie Starbuck. I mean, this is fantastic. That being said, I'm reading this Newsweek article and it says the funding shortfall has come under scrutiny at a time when at least $640 million in FEMA funding is being spent on assisting communities across the country dealing with an influx of migrants. I would just like to reframe that in a way that might be politically advantageous to those who are concerned about this crisis, in that the federal government, the Biden-Harris administration, considers the influx of illegal immigrants a federal emergency.
Yeah,
now, if they believe that the influx of illegal immigrants across this country is a federal emergency, enough that they're going to spend $500 million on all of this, I think we should at least mention that when we're talking about the crisis of over illegal immigration and say it's so bad. Biden-Harris has dumped $500 million because it is a federal emergency. FEMA is footing the bill. Mm-hmm. Then when it comes to the hurricane, fact checkers can come out and say, actually, 750 is the appropriate amount as set by the guidelines. Sure, let's change that. Extenuating circumstances. The people need our help. I don't understand why we're going to spend money resettling illegal immigrants when our own neighbors, the people who make this country as wealthy as it is, are not getting what they need to survive.
Right.
Well, with that being said, let's throw it to our good friend, Joe Walsh. You guys know Joe Walsh, right? So we got this clip from Donald Trump, who is calling out what's going on with FEMA. Check this out.
That's what's happening. They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants that they want to have vote for them this season. They're trying. That's what's.
So that's you can see this viral tweet. And then Joe Walsh, of course, what is he? He's the Republican for Harris or whatever. He says he flat out lies. And Republican elected officials don't say ish. He's preying on people's worst fears. And Republican elected officials don't say ish. You know what I just can't stand about the current state of politics is that when I saw that tweet, I saw what Trump said. I'm like, FEMA, they stole the money from FEMA? Like, whoa, what was that all about? Oh, Joe Walsh is saying Trump is lying. Let me Google this.
Yeah, check it out real quick.
And what did I find? yeah, $640 million was spent on the influx of immigrants, and Newsweek has this story. And I was like, oh. So why is he saying Trump's lying? Is it that he doesn't know how to Google search things? Or is it that he is a liar who is trying to manipulate people into supporting his political side for whatever reason?
Oh, he's the worst. He's been doing this for years. He has the top 3 Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, I honestly feel bad for the guy because he's hated by everybody.
This is very empathetic.
And he
of
hates
you.
everybody.
You know, I think for some people, you can't say that illegal immigration causes any kind of problems, even when it's very clear. Like in this case, $640 million that could have gone to, hurricane relief went somewhere else. The agency in charge of this budget decided how they were going to spend their money, and then they get to issue a dire warning like, we don't have enough money for the next hurricane. And I think that it's one of these breaking points in American culture where a lot of Americans are able to now say, like, I am not anti-immigrant. I am not hateful of people who come from somewhere else. You just can't come here illegally and then use all of our resources. And this is becoming a prime example. So when he's saying Trump lies, I feel like it's that knee-jerk reaction of being like, well, illegal immigration doesn't cause any problems, so you can't say that.
Well, he doesn't believe it. He knows he's lying. He's part of a full grift that he's created in order to stay relevant in a party that passed him by.
But you know what? I think it was Elad Eliyahu, who does street reporting for us over here. He talked with Joe Walsh, and Joe Walsh is very pro-Israel. And Elad was saying that they actually had a connection on that issue. I think it was Elad, but the general idea is Joe Walsh hates Donald Trump, but you can't deny it. I'm sorry. The left right now is split. When you look at the polls, Democrats overwhelmingly do not like Israel. I think support among Democrat voters is 44%. This is not a statement of support for Israel. Y'all can calm down because I know it's very divisive. I'm not trying to be divisive. I'm trying to point out for someone like Joe Walsh, whose principal issue is support for Israel, and that's what he was saying, to side with the Democrats, well, that's opposition to your own ideals just because you hate Donald Trump. But let me throw one more out there because maybe Joe will say, this is wrong. They're mischaracterizing what I'm saying. I'm calling Trump's lies about illegal immigrants voting because Trump does say that they want to have vote for them this season. Well, look, come on. Washington Post says number of Arizona voters missing citizenship proof doubles. Officials say about 218,000 of the state's 4.1 million voters were improperly recorded as having provided proof of citizenship as required to vote in state and local elections. That's the Washington Post.
Yeah,
it's
true. It's true in a number of states.
And the Democrats are filing lawsuits to make sure these people are reinstated. So when Donald Trump says they want illegal immigrants to vote for them, he's being hyperbolic for sure. But Democrats' actions speak louder than words. I'm not gonna play a game where I come out and say Democrats are trying to get illegal immigrants to vote. But I will say, when Republicans try to remove people who don't have proof of citizenship from the voter rolls, Democrats sue to keep them on.
Well, that's right. And there is a law in place that I think was signed in 1992 by Bill Clinton that says that you cannot remove people from the voter rolls within 90 days of an election. So all of these states that are coming up with this now and realizing what's going on, they are at risk of violating that law and they can be sued. And the DOJ has started lawsuits against some states to prevent them from removing people from the rolls, even if those people are non-citizens. So yes, in a very real way, the Biden-Harris Department of Justice is suing states to require them to keep non-citizens on voter rolls. That's just true.
Yeah.
It sounds hyperbolic and it sounds crazy, just like it sounded crazy that Kamala Harris was backing sex changes for illegal immigrant criminals in prison. But she was, in fact, doing that. Does it sound crazy? Yes. Is it also true? Yes.
I feel like it stopped sounding crazy because how many times did they say we're not doing that? Like anytime the Democratic Party is like, no, we're not going to do that. Or no, there are already laws in place to ensure non-citizens aren't registering to vote, so surely they are not doing that.
But if you're not enforcing any of these laws, then it doesn't make any difference what your law is.
If they say something is fine, you immediately have to be like, oh no, we better check that out right now. Like the second Kamala Harris is like, no, I'm not doing anything nefarious, you have to look at her and be like, either you don't know what you're talking about or you're lying, and I think it's the second thing.
Did she not realize that the world would come and go and shift and tides would change to the point where at this point, she looks crazy for saying that, even in her own 2024 mindset.
I think it may be possible that she doesn't have an internal monologue.
Right.
That she's not actually thinking things through to the next thing.
I got the perfect debate question to start. If you did not eat breakfast yesterday, how would you have felt? Are you familiar with this meme? No. It comes from a viral post where there was a guy claiming that he did psychological research on prison inmates, and they found that many of the most violent offenders could not understand conditional hypotheticals. So if you asked them, if you did not have breakfast yesterday morning, how would you have felt? They'd go, but I did have breakfast. You go, I understand that. But if you didn't, how would you feel? And they'd go, but I did have breakfast. And so it's an indication of lack of cognitive functions and capabilities. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have been hungry because I was doing a goat cheese omelet with some avocado.
Kamala Harris to say, well, I'm from the middle class. I was raised in the middle class, and breakfast, we didn't always have it, and just completely give you no answer because she
in
doesn't
Westmount, Montreal, they just didn't have those good bagels.
Look, you can't answer these questions.
This Arizona story is actually really crazy, though, and this is why I was talking to Mario Nawfal the other day. We did a really great interview. Sorry, that guy's fantastic. I'm a big fan. He brought a crew. We did an interview. I hope he publishes it because I thought it was great. He asked great questions. But anyway, he asked me why did I think it was that the betting odds favor Kamala Harris despite Trump seemingly having better polls, winning the unions, and shadow campaign. Call it whatever you want, shadow campaign. But explain to me how Arizona gets 218,000 people on their voter rolls who didn't provide the legal proof that is required under state law. Now, look, by all means, come to me and say it's racist to require proof, say blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Fine. Call it whatever you want, but Arizona requires it. So who put in 218,000 people without them providing proof? Whoopsie daisies? Nah, I'm sorry. 218,000 accidents is like winning the lottery 3 times in a row. I don't buy it.
But you're supposed to. That's what bothers me. Like, you are supposed to not question these things. In fact, I won't be surprised if some other report comes out and is like, so many real Americans lost their right to vote because of this unfair law. And then when you dig into it, it's like, well, there are actually people who are here illegally.
Or just dead. Or they're dead people.
I mean, and this is the other thing that bothers me. Like, there is a level of like, when you say, hey, I think we should be really careful about who's voting in our elections and make sure all of our numbers are accurate because we want fair elections. Everyone's like, conspiracy theorist. That's crazy. How could you question this? That's very conspiracy of you.
The other thing too, though, it's pretty much the only right that American citizens have left. We don't get any of the other ones that, everyone gets all of our rights, which fine. Okay. But like, we at least need to be the only ones getting to vote for them.
Yeah.
That should be a key thing.
And even if half or a quarter of these voters show up and cast a ballot, that could sway the whole state.
Yeah.
Certainly Maricopa County.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is why it's so important that's happening in Arizona, which the Kamala Harris campaign is really pouring a lot of money into. They're attempting to secure it for themselves, and I'd like to see it happen in Nevada, in Michigan, in other swing states because I think Arizona's the most obvious one because it is a border state, but we know that illegal immigration is actually a problem everywhere. Basically, every state is a border state. I mean, how many secret flights did the Biden administration have to schedule in the middle of the night to convince you that they were actually
For people
nefarious?
with no ID just being shipped off?
They were trafficking children.
Yes.
And
They are trafficking children.
Right. Do you guys
This
remember
is
when
all still happening.
Dr. Phil went on The View and he was like, I talked to the head of the CBP union who said that children are coming in by themselves with numbers written on their arms. They call the number and they know it's a child sex trafficker and they just say, shuffle them on in. We got that report, last week? 660,000 illegal immigrants with criminal records are at large, including murderers, rapists, and robbers.
That included some people who were in prison, but yeah, they're in the United States.
Trump was completely right when he called this out. This is what terrifies me. When people like Joe Walsh lie because they hate Donald Trump, listen, I watched that debate with J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, and I got to tell you, I said it before and I'll say it again. A lot of people in this country probably wished they were the presidential nominees right now, the candidates, because there was that Midwestern kindness, they call it. I have long criticized Donald Trump I said he's crude and he's crass, but I'll tell you what, I will take mean tweets if it means effective policy and calling out what is actually going on. And that is the truth. J.D. Vance, I am so happy that he's standing alongside Trump, and I'm very excited for 2028.
Right. I would definitely vote for J.D. Vance in 2028 so far.
He had a grand slam at that debate. He redefined himself. I am really impressed. My point is, you can hate Donald Trump all you want, but he's not wrong. And so by all means, Joe or any other person come out and say, yeah, well, he's a dick. And I'd be like, you got me there, but he's right. I'll take right over what we've experienced over the past 3.5 years.
There was another thing, too. 1.7 million illegal immigrants have come in who are on the terror watch list or something like that. That came out today from the House Oversight and like are flagged for crimes. There's and there were other things, too, that now I can't remember because you were talking. I forgot what I was saying.
Well, going back to Vance,
I was praising Trump.
I know.
I think the beauty of Vance in the VP debate was that he was as tailored and sophisticated and well spoken as the left, right? As the left, the general left, and he presented conservatism in a way that is not often stated. He was sharp. He knew how to combat the moderators when they were fact checking. Like, you really felt like this guy had his stuff together, and that's great. And it's kind of, it's similar to Hollywood versus sort of a conservative independent movie, and the well-funded liberal candidate versus the upstart conservative candidate who is sometimes all on his own and fighting for his life every single day, whether it's Trump, whether it's Vance, whatever. But I just thought J.D. Vance knocked it out of the park.
I did too. I also think that no matter what headlines they run, the Harris Walz campaign knows J.D. Vance crushed it. There are all these reports coming out that Walz is about to do several late night appearances, and now Kamala Harris is about to do a 60 Minutes interview. I mean, they are attempting to give these people the kind of likability that J.D. Vance really cultivated for himself and the general Republican ticket. Because, I think Donald Trump is a once-in-a-lifetime personality. I think it really works in a lot of ways, but it's not for everybody. And right. I think we should move away from I want to get a beer with this person mentality. Like, if he's strong and tough and is going to get us out of all the foreign conflicts and fix the economy, that's good. The 2 months or whatever of this like vibes only, no policies Harris Walz campaign is clearly dying out, and now they're thinking, oh, we're actually going to have to put these people in front of basically softball interviews to try and make them as likable as J.D. Vance made his entire party in one night.
Yeah, the other thing, too, you mentioned the fact checks against J.D. Vance, and there was one really telling moment. We were talking about it before the show where J.D. Vance came out and he was talking about paid child leave, and he talked about his family and the struggles that they went through. And I actually wrote about this for Human Events today. He talked about the struggles that they had trying to figure out what's the right balance. He praised his wife and her career. He said she was a brilliant litigator, which I thought was really cool. He's so supportive. You've Doug Emhoff out here being praised for being the remaking masculinity while he's like banging the nanny and, slapping his girlfriend at con or whatever. And like, here's Vance being like, my wife is brilliant and she struggles with figuring out she should more time as a mom, more time in the workforce. But what came up in terms of feminism and, stuff for women after the debate was Nicole Wallace slamming J.D. Vance for having spoken over the moderator after she fact-checked him falsely.
That's not what she said. She said he was mansplaining.
Right. He was mansplaining.
How dare he?
If I recall, we were watching the debate on Tuesday night and me and Hannah Claire were both like, yes, mention the CBP One app. We've been digging into that for months. Somebody finally mentioned that in a national way, and he did that, and he was slammed. Why? Not for talking over the moderator, but for presenting facts.
For mansplaining. Come on. We know the real reason.
If only he was sitting down and we could have seen him
mansplaining
spread out.
What happened.
I am, and I'm proud of it.
But think about Vance for a second, okay? This guy, had a unbelievable childhood, right? Rose out of poverty, went to Yale Law School, right? Went and wrote a novel that became a bestseller, then understood Hollywood. Ron Howard directed his life story, right? The access points to all this. Became a senator, right? This guy should be a roadmap for young men and women in America who want to go and try and make a real difference. but you got to go. You can't just be in your own worlds all day. You have to go and be in Yale Law School and work with Hollywood. You got to get those experiences and things like that, because if you don't, you don't understand totally how the game works.
And I think being in all of those places is informative. Like, he is used to being in hostile territory where probably his beliefs are not popular. I used to think about this. I grew up in Connecticut, which was super blue, and I have basically been boring and conservative my entire life. So, you kind of get used to not being the majority opinion. I think J.D. Vance is fascinating because the first time I heard about his book, it was from a very, very liberal woman at the all-girls school I worked for who was saying, wow, it's so compelling. I never thought about Americans who live this way.
It had real hipster appeal.
Right. If he can do this for the hipsters, if he can open up Appalachian America for them, what can he do for the rest of the country?
He wins Williamsburg.
And the words in the book didn't change. They loved the book. Now they hate the book.
Yeah. But to Libby's point, he
Nothing
spends so
changed.
much time praising his wife, praising his mom for getting clean, and praising his grandmother. But they label him an anti-woman bigot.
What changed was that he said, Trump's not so bad.
Also,
that's about it.
How great were the memes? How great were the looks at camera?
Good.
Oh, so good.
Oh, they were so great.
Let's pull this story. We got this from Politico. Trump says he will remove temporary protected status and deport Haitian migrants in Springfield. The GOP presidential nominee's onslaught against the migrants in Springfield has been at the forefront of his campaign in recent weeks. Sure. But here we have it from Kamala's Wins on X. Breaking in a stunning announcement, Donald Trump just announced that he will revoke the protective status of Haitian migrants in Ohio legally. This is repulsive. Retweet so that all Americans see how vile Trump really is. What I love about this, I will play the clip for you in a second, is that all the responses from the right is like, yes, please share. Because immigration is the number 2 issue in the country right now. That's why Trump is taking this approach. Check this out.
Springfield is such a beautiful place. Have you seen what's happened to it? It's been overrun. You can't do that to people. They have to be removed.
So you would revoke the temporary protected status?
Absolutely. I'd revoke it and I'd bring them back to their country.
So let's talk about CBP One app and what J.D. Vance was calling out at the debate. Illegal immigrants come to this country. They then basically, pending trial or whatever, open up an app and say, I would like to be temporarily protected. And they go, you're good. That's it. That is when they keep running this lie about the border security bipartisan bill. What it actually was codifying illegal immigration as they run it now. The idea was, Kamala Harris is like, Democrats and Republicans came together and said, we need more border guards. We need this to secure our borders. No, what it would have done was it would have legalized. The argument is actually quite simple. The bill they put forward was, we're going to end illegal immigration overnight by making it legal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They said we were going to speed up adjudication. Yes, by giving a fast track for approval. Mm-hmm. We want proper vetting. We want to make sure I'm all for immigration. Right? I was talking about Hung Cao. He's running for Senate in Virginia. And his story is that his parents were evacuated out of Vietnam when the communists were taking over at the fall of Saigon. Yeah. And he joined, I believe it was the Navy, right? He's a Navy captain, served for 25 years. You want to talk about an immigration story that warms your heart. This guy said, America saved my life. And then he goes and gives back to this country. I love those stories. Bring all the immigrants here. Let's get good people who respect our laws. But these people don't.
Well, and people who want to be American.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the big difference.
Yeah.
So Trump is absolutely correct to say we should not fast track random people who broke our laws and reward them with temporary protected status.
What I don't understand also is you have people who get temporary protective status through the CBP One app because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris allowed that an extra 30,000 people per month can come in through that app from specific countries. Those specific countries are Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Haiti, right? But if you look at the special interest aliens, which is just a term of art of government, the special interest aliens, there are 26 countries that the DHS has determined pose the greatest national security and counterintelligence threats to the U.S. The special interest countries include a bunch of them, and Cuba and Venezuela. So why do we have on the same list that we have special interest countries like these people could be a danger to us? Why are they also the ones getting temporary protected status? And we're seeing this gang infiltrating the U.S., this Tren de Aragua gang, which may now have been linked to Jocelyn Nungare's death in Texas, which has there's James O'Keefe discovered there's like 400 operating people from this gang in New York City. They're all over the place. The guy who killed Laken Riley may have been part of this gang. Certainly his brother and his cousin were. And he came into the country and applied for asylum. And you can apply for asylum at the border, and all you have to say is that you fear going home. You fear retribution at home. You can ditch your ID. And this CBP One app, you can download it, and you could go through this yourself, and you can look at it. You can put in any name. You can put in anything, and you schedule a date to surrender yourself. You get a court date. And the idea was, originally when this app was created, it was actually created not for immigration, but to facilitate faster importation of perishable goods. That's what it was for.
And the Biden administration was like,
wow.
you know,
That's what it was used for under Trump. It was like they created the app and it was like, okay, you're bringing in a bunch of bananas. We don't want you to get jammed up at ports. Why don't you schedule an appointment to come in at a port and drop off your bananas or whatever?
Dropping off your bananas.
And the
Stuff
Biden
like that.
administration was like, you know what we like? Amnesty light. Let's go.
Amnesty light.
It's crazy. It is fascinating to me that they are presenting this as like, oh, we are. You know, often they'll say when they want funding, we want more technology at the border, and the CBB One app is now becoming kind of one of those tags like, well, we've innovated it so it makes it faster and that helps border agents. But what actually they're communicating is we do not care about national security no matter how much we posture. If they did, they would not offer this app. They would have terminated Alejandro Mayorkas, and they would take the border seriously. But instead, it is about changing I would think, the demographics of America in a way that favors their policies and their potential to stay in power.
Well, it's worse. The stories that you see, whether they're attributed to this gang or similar, are just the tip of the iceberg. It's like when a cockroach pops out of the wall.
Oh, and you know that there's a million
there's
in there.
a million in there. Yeah. So what's happening right now, even in my childhood neighborhood of Highland Park, you went to SMU for college. You know the neighborhood well. It's the nicest place in all of Texas. It's the safest and everything like that. And they've had 2 attacks in the last week.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it doesn't reach the national news because it's not the mainstream media talking point. It would go against.
Well, it also doesn't reach the national news because it doesn't reach the local news.
Right.
We had, I don't know if everybody remembers but we had conglomerations of newspaper companies getting together, buying up local presses, and then dismembering the local presses and consolidating and consolidating and consolidating. So now if you're a news outlet, there's not a lot of local sources to go look to. Even at the Post-Millennial, we used to see a lot more local sources, and we'd see something like that, and we'd be like, this should be a national story, let's blow it up. The local news outlets aren't there. I mean, it's even hard to get local weather.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the local news folks, they want to be national news folks, so they would never ruin their invitation to rise up. But
But local people need local news.
Well, and also the challenge is that most of these communities, they're very conservative, mostly Christian. They really don't totally always understand all the intricacies of giant sort of globalism and all this kind of stuff. And so they're sitting ducks. They're actually marks for these types of gangs. And so, this is just going to get worse. And it's really sad because they're so accepting, these communities, and they're so warm and friendly, and they're going to it's going to end badly.
They pay the price for the federal government's
what they can't understand, they can't even fathom, is what happens when the grid goes down, or what happens when a hurricane hits their neighborhood, and they're down for 2-3 weeks. It's going to get bad.
So just to add on to this, when you go to Gallup's most recent, most important problem poll, we can see that the economy in general is at 24% and immigration is 22%, and they are deeply connected. Now, the fascinating thing is that there's this informal prediction system that Gallup has. They polled people in election years and asked them, what is the most pressing issue? They then ask them, which political party do you think will handle the most pressing issue? And since I think it was 1952, these dual polls have predicted accurately which party wins. And right now, based on Gallup's polls, looks like Republicans should win. Donald Trump is heavily favored on the economy and immigration. And so I'm going to have to break it to all our liberal friends, Joe Walsh and others. He's supposedly a conservative. I don't know, but he wants to vote for Democrats. You can hate Donald Trump all you want. You can criticize him. You can say the mean tweets, the name calling is beneath us, and I can't stand it. And you know what's going to happen? Regular Americans are going to say, I'm voting with my pocketbook, and I'm voting for my family. I am concerned about the waste of money. I am concerned about the high cost of living and inflation, which is the third highest. Went to the grocery store today. It's $130, and we had, I think, three bags.
Yep.
I don't even know. We got some blueberries. I'll admit it. Some raspberries, some blackberries.
Well, that's $25 right there.
It was. And some coconut milk. And we didn't get meat or anything.
Oh, you can't buy meat anymore at the grocery store. That's why I started buying meat in bulk. I buy it from these like
in the freezer.
No, that's
right?
that's like the best.
That's
way
what
to
I
do.
do.
Right
You
now.
should
Buy a whole
see this.
cow.
I have this brisket in the freezer right now. It's like this big. I made one of the small ones last week. I made brisket ramen. That was really good, and I made birria tacos with it. And
I wanted a whipped cream. It was $6.
well, don't buy you buy the heavy whipping cream and you whip it yourself. It's way better. It has less crap in it.
But
You're
I'm
always talking about you don't want to eat the bad stuff. Like whip your own damn cream.
Libby's best slogan of all time.
You've convinced me. No, but I mean, and we've done
And
that
you
before.
get more. You get more
I
whipped cream.
have a story for you. A couple of years ago, we had heavy cream, and I was like, I want to make whipped cream because it's keto, right? And so I put it in a mixing bowl. I just poured the whole thing in, and I was like, I'll put it on low, and then I'm going to go record a 20-minute.
Oh, and you made butter, didn't you?
No, Allison walks in the kitchen, and there's buttermilk spraying everywhere because it whipped butter and then started smacking the buttermilk all in the air. And she walked, and she's like, what the? And I'm like, I get up, I'm like, what happened? And I'm like, oops.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. Come on.
You could also
I
use.
just buy Ready Whip. What am I?
You could use instead of using confectioner's sugar, if you want to sweeten up your whipped cream a little bit, use monk fruit sugar.
Yeah.
That's keto.
I didn't have to. I don't
little
I
vanilla.
don't need any sugar in it.
Wow.
Whipped cream tastes good. You dip a
delicious.
strawberry in it. You know
I
what
like
mean?
to put in a little
But no,
vanilla.
but in all serious, we got strawberries. I was going to get the Ready Whip, and I'm not sure if it was Ready Whip, but it was $5.99. And I was just like, ugh, I don't need whipped cream that bad.
But Kamala says that's price gouging.
Oh, I blame Ready Whip for the high cost. No, our old grocery store, we used to go to a Weiss, or is it Weiss? I don't know. Weiss. But I like saying Weiss because it's, more German. But they had no heavy cream. And it was wild because I'm doing keto. I'm like, I want to put a little bit of heavy cream in my coffee. And we would go there, and for like a couple months, they just never had any. And I'm like, come on, that's not right. And someone told us that there's shortages, it's expensive, things like that. And so I think this is the reality. What really grinds my gears a whole lot. I was reading Nate Silver this morning, and I just kind of went off because he's like, the economy is good, but it's not great. And I was just ready to flip this table. This table weighs 1,000 pounds, so I ain't flipping anything. But I'm like, dude, we have employees. We have costs for there's a big old box of meat sticks right in front of me. What do people get hungry on the show? And then once the show wraps up, they'll be like, I need a snack. And okay, we got meat sticks. I have to buy these things. I go online and I look up all the snacks and the protein shakes and the water, and it's just the prices are getting crazy. And it's frustrating. And then I go to the grocery store, I go to Food Line like everybody else, and I have to buy these things. So when they tell me the economy is good, I'm like, how many of these people, is Nate Silver running a company? I don't know, maybe he is. But have you dealt with the costs, the ancillary costs of everything you need running a company, supplies? I mean, when you got to buy pens and pads of paper, is he looking at this stuff? Because I am. And I'm like, prices are getting nuts. And it's bad for business. So when they come out and they're like, the economy is good, trust the numbers. I'm like, no, I'm running a company. I have to buy drinks, water, food, snacks, pen, paper, etc. Printer paper, ink cartridges. It's getting expensive every day. It's getting worse. Again, I got 3 or 4 bags of groceries today. We got some blueberries and some coconut milk. And then the lady's like, that'll be $129.60. Or now I was like, wait, what? What did we get?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm fed up with them saying, trust us, the economy is good. Well, it's not for me. I don't know.
I don't want to trust anybody ever again.
Yeah,
I'm done trusting you and your big stupid government, your experts. Ever since COVID, we're done.
But Tim Wall says trust the experts, Libby.
Yeah,
so bigoted.
And apparently he's an expert. What is he an expert in? What is he an expert in?
He's an expert in tampons in the men's room.
Right.
He's not even an expert football coach. He was the assistant football coach. It's rough. No, but seriously, doesn't it make you wonder what a bad economy to them would look like? I fear for that. If this is good, what is bad?
Yeah, I was talking to one of my sisters today, and she was telling me that she's looking for a new job and no one's hiring full time anywhere. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "What is that? There's only part-time work available."
I think we're facing a serious managerial and labor crisis.
Well, no one wants to work.
Nobody wants to work.
No one wants to hire.
Yeah, I think there's a talent crisis.
That's for sure.
You were mentioning this before, so I'm stealing your line. I don't want to take it from you, but I've been referring to this as we have a managerial crisis. That I think what happened during the lockdowns is that a lot of people retired. So instantly, the older generation, so this is basically a lot of boomers, just said, you know what, I'm out. Older Gen Xers said, I'm done. And with COVID, they all just said, we're moving on. Instantly, managers and people who run the show were out of the workforce. That forced a bunch of people who are not ready to run the show upwards, and many didn't even take it. So I take a look at a lot of businesses that never reopened. I take a look at, there are, a good example that I like to use is at the local casino, the racetrack. They used to have a restaurant where you could sit down, order food, and watch the horse races. And you don't bet $1 million on horses. You get a problem. You go there and you bet $1 on the horse with a funny name while you're having dinner, and it gives you something to like, oh, wait, there it goes. The horses are off. No restaurant anymore. And I asked them why it was, and they said after COVID, a bunch of people quit and they couldn't find anybody to take their job, so they just shut it down. And I'm like, it's the racetrack. It's been here for 100-something years. It's just gone. And I've talked to a bunch of businesses that have said similar things. So we're lacking the skills. We're lacking the gumption. I feel like there's a lot of people who don't want to work. And it's all generations. I don't know how you solve that problem.
I mean, I don't want to work, but I still work.
I just don't get it. I love work.
I work really hard. Well, sometimes I'd like a day off.
I put a camera on my chicken coop to monetize and turn my chickens into a business. It was fun. Actually, shout out to my brother, Chris, who did all of the heavy lifting to make the chicken food dispenser so that when you feed the chickens, snacks come down, and after $100, a disco ball plays dance music for the chickens. And we had a blast doing it. And that's business. That's work.
Do you think any of it is people now feel like work has to be a huge part of their identity? And for some people that works totally well.
I think that might be true.
But some people are like, but I don't want to wait tables. Like, I'm actually supposed to be doing, you were mentioning before the show, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this. There are lots of young people in Hollywood who you maybe would have thought are like, I'm going to earn my way up the ranks. I'm going to try and whatever. And they like come in expecting to run a studio right away. I mean, there is a level of like, I should be doing something else. And if I'm not doing that thing,
I'm too good for my job.
Right. I'm not going to work at this level.
Oh, certainly. I mean, that's a major, major problem, not necessarily on the right, but for big Hollywood and the studios. I mean, look at the strikes. Look at the strikes from last year.
Oh, they were ridiculously
They were
stupid.
the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I've shamed them online every single day. I was the one producer who was willing to say anything, and it will go down as the thing that ruined Hollywood. They have zero protections from AI. They have limited wins here and there. But the point to your point, they all believe that they should have their own shows. They all believe it, and they don't deserve them. They aren't talented enough to have their own shows, but they've been,
they're following their
They're
dreams,
snowflakes.
Alex.
well, yeah,
They're all unique, beautiful snowflakes.
Yeah.
And Hollywood told
They're living their
Hollywood
truth.
told them they were supposed to all have their own shows.
Hollywood did this to themselves.
Yeah,
You're right.
Hollywood did it to themselves.
I want to jump to this next story, but actually, before I do, I just want to mention that there is an event coming up, the Power of Unity event, Sunday, October 13th, 2 to 5 p.m. Scott Pressler will be there. I'm told it's a very important event in PA to help get voters registered and get people politically active. I don't know what I'm supposed to say just yet, but I'm going to say it anyway. Jack Posobiec, I believe, will be there as well. I'm very excited. And I will be there. And this is like, I don't do this a lot, my friends, but I will be speaking. I am Maha all the way. Make America Healthy Again, 100%. And there were some mutterings behind the scenes that there's an opportunity to help do voter registration in PA. I talked with some people who I'm going to leave their names out, but some top men, some very important, very powerful individuals. And they're all saying, guys, we don't care who you are, what you're doing. What are you doing to help convince people to register to vote? And I said, what can I do? And I was asked to speak at an event. And I said, I don't do this. I don't normally do this because I'm the milquetoast fence sitter, but I will do this because I think this, when I say that it matters a lot. So I'll have more up. There's no cost. You've got an RSVP.
Where is it?
It's going to be, I'm sorry. It's in PA. It's going to be, I believe it's in Newtown.
Okay.
But I'm going to have more information later. You should come if you're able to. I'll try and bring the crew, whoever wants to come. Cool. But so more information. Scott Pressler again, Jack Posobiec. I should have an update tomorrow because it was literally just earlier today. They said, hey, would you want to? I'm like, let's do voter registration, man. I got to put my money where my mouth is. We're going to make the trip up there so that we can, tell people, just get registered to vote, be a part of this. Because the worst case scenario is people, everyone goes nuts in this country. No. Let's just win a clean election. Everyone can shake hands, smile, but we will win. So I just wanted to shout that out. And it's the power of unity. Follow Scott Pressler on X. He might have more information, but I will have an update tomorrow. That being said, let's just we'll get back into this. It's not a sponsored thing. There's no pay. I'm not getting paid to do any of this. I genuinely believe it's important to go up to one of the Keystone State, one of the most important places, and just convince people to get registered. So I'll do my best. Here we go. From the Daily Mail, MSNBC host left stunned by star impeachment witness revealing he is backing Trump because Harris is an existential threat bigger than January 6th. I don't know if you guys saw this clip, but this was absolutely wild.
It's important for you to say no more Trump because of his January 6th conduct. And do you stand by that?
No, I don't stand by it. And I'll tell you why. I've now lived 4 years under the Biden-Harris policies. And I have to say that those policies are not only becoming an existential threat to our country's way of life, but to our allies as well.
So when you Ambassador, I'll let you finish, but this is so striking. You said it was a no for me after that January 6th.
I did.
And here we are right now.
I did.
And you're saying it's a yes for you.
It is a yes for me.
Wow.
It is an absolute yes for me. That is how badly the Biden-Harris team have prosecuted their job.
But the whole point you seem to be making was that January 6th and that kind of attack on democracy is bigger than any policy.
But I am seeing so many attacks on democracy that eclipse January 6th.
So I want to ask Sarah.
If you want to ask me what those are, I'm happy.
Well, I'm going to go Sarah in the back. But this is, I appreciate
Kamala Harris why she flip-flopped on 16 things.
Look, I appreciate everyone being here. Sarah, I'm curious your reaction to someone who, like you, has participated, and I say that positively, Ambassador. You, as a government official, were asked to testify, and you did. And then you drew a line at Jan 6. And then, Sarah, we see this with certain people, and I say it respectfully, who say that, he's at the table with you, and then tell us years later, never mind. Can you explain that, and what's your response to that?
A couple things I want to hit real quick. First, Kamala Harris, I think we should give her grace that she can moderate her positions. If J.D. Vance can go from calling Trump...
Okay, blah, blah, blah. This is incredible. Sondland. Do you guys remember his testimony?
Yeah.
This was when we had the dual split-screen realities where there were... I can't remember who posted it. It was like a gym, and they had two different channels on, and they both said the opposite. Sondland confirms quid pro quo. Sondland says no quid pro quo. Either way, MSNBC has a guy on who's like, I said Trump is a no for me. Imagine the narrative they ran. This is a backfiring of all backfirings. They said January 6th was an existential threat, a threat to democracy. They paraded around these people who said I could never vote for Trump because of this. And Kamala Harris was so bad that they're like, I didn't think the bar could get any lower, but it did. And now I'm definitely voting for Trump. That basically is, it's taking all of the most extreme rhetoric of J6 and now telling the country, remember all of the scary things he told you? That's actually better. You're better off under that than Kamala Harris. Amazing.
It is amazing. And I think, Sondland should be commended for publicly stating this. I think it would have been very easy for a lot of people who had sort of said one thing to then kind of disappear into the background and never address it. I think it's good to have people say, like, I maybe was critical of Donald Trump at one point, but this crisis, the crisis we are facing right now under the Biden-Harris administration, is so bad that we cannot pretend it's not an attack on democracy, that people are not suffering because of this. It's obviously funny to watch the MSNBC host be like, stop talking, Sarah, you tell me something else. Because I think there is this expectation that once you have walked away from the conservative party or the Republicans or whatever, that you were never going to go back. And that's why right now the Kamala Harris administration is like, we got Dick Cheney. Look at all these great Republicans. Like Adam Kinzinger spoke at our convention.
Oh, dude, the debate. I know I said it yesterday, but J.D. Vance is like, we got a great coalition. We got RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard here. And then Tim Walz is like, we got Bernie Sanders and Dick Cheney.
Right.
Wow, that's nothing.
And Taylor Swift.
You can have them.
Taylor Swift.
It's interesting, too, though. You notice this is on MSNBC, and James O'Keefe came out with an undercover report today showing a guy, one of the producers at MSNBC, saying that MSNBC has will do everything they can to help Kamala win the election, that they have dumbed down their viewers over the past few years and really narrowed their focus, and that this has all essentially been done intentionally to maintain a Democrat stronghold. It's sort of obvious. We all know it, but it's still pretty amazing to get that kind of transparency.
Do we think that the host knew Sondland was going to say this, or was it a shock to him? What do we think?
I think it was a shock.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah, because
obviously we need more of this because these are the types of people's points of view that will change voters' minds.
Absolutely. Navarro, of course, I'm fairly certain he will be in the next Trump administration, and he's going to defend Donald Trump. He's a good dude.
Totally.
And so I think what MSNBC was likely going for is we're going to get a Trump guy. We're going to get an anti-Trump person, this woman, and then we're going to bring in a guy who's supposed to be middle of the road, and he's going to say, no, I'm not with Trump. And then he shocks him by saying, actually, nah, I'm with Trump now. Mm-hmm. And you can see his surprise.
It's on the table.
Wait.
It's on the table.
Two of the three former Trump-affiliated people to be against him. So it looks like the majority of people who know Trump are turning against him. But what I actually love about this, Peter Navarro is great, he's been on the show before, is how still he's sitting, like taking this
and then
in.
he just smiles.
And then he's like, okay, and I'm on your side. Like, you flip-flop on 1 team, Kamala's flip-flop on 16. Like, I think there is this really good
And then he's got the little smile.
Oh, my God.
Is Rappaport back with Trump now?
I don't know. I haven't paid attention
because
too much.
He was like, voting for Trump is on the table. Big Dick Donald Trump.
It's on the
That's
table.
What he was saying.
I loved
And then
it.
something happened. I can't remember what it was, but he was like, no, voting for Trump is off the table. Yeah, but you look at Iran striking Israel now, and that's one of his principal issues. A lot of these Democrats, and I try telling people, guys, there are people who love Israel in this country, and it's like 60%, 70%, okay? So we get the internet is full of people who want to argue over this. I'm telling you, when the protests happened against Israel, pro-Palestine, with even some elements that were outright pro-Hamas, you saw Democrats say, that's it, final straw, I'm voting for Donald Trump. After what we just saw in the Middle East, I don't understand how you don't have Rappaport being like, Trump's the only answer.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. There was an article in the Telegraph today talking about how the U.S. needs to back Israel to destroy Iran's nuclear sites. And in the article, it says, the UK doesn't need to get directly involved. I was like, yeah, okay. Thanks, guys.
This is interesting. You know, I wonder how many actual sane individuals are going to start. I don't know if sane individual is the right word, but people like Sondland, you know, they're probably these, you know, neocon or establishment conservative types who looked at Donald Trump and said, this is not decorum. This is not what we want in leadership. And then they got Joe Biden and they went, my God, what have I done? Now Kamala Harris is stepping up to the plate and they're like, oh, Lord, help us. We need Trump back. And that's a shocking testament to the state of the Democratic Party. I wonder how many other conservatives that went, you know, neo-lib or whatever are going to turn around and be like, the only thing we got left is Trump. Take it or leave it.
We'll never get David French, but we'll get many others.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they could do. Some people, though, are just so infected with this Trump derangement syndrome that no level of vaccine will wake them up from their stupor.
But this could end up being a dam breaker. You know, this could allow others to find the confidence and things like that to start to say.
Well, I was talking to Kyle Mann at the Babylon Bee, and they have a new movie coming out called J6, The Deadliest Day Ever.
Oh, yeah.
It's really funny. I have a screener. I can't wait to watch it. What date? What's the date? Oh yeah, I still have time. Anyways, yeah, I'm really excited to watch that movie. But they talk to people, and they went up to people on the street, going like, you know, where were you on January 6th? And people were like, when? Like, what do you mean? You know? And one girl was like, storming the Capitol. No, just kidding. You know what I mean? And so I think it's interesting. And we talked about the movie, and I was asking him if people are ready to move on from this J6 thing. Because we've been beaten over the heads with J6 for, you know, this whole time, for 3.5 years. This is all they can come up with. Meanwhile, there's political violence episode after political violence episode coming from the left. So maybe Americans are ready to move on. You know, RFK Jr. spoke about January 6th and how that had been a concern for him, but it's more important to actually have freedoms and to have, you know, make America healthy again and all that stuff. So I think Americans are ready to move on from J6. There was one person killed. It was a Trump supporter. She was a Trump supporter.
Ashley Babbitt?
Ashley Babbitt. And we have seen so many worse things since then.
And Walls brought this up, right? That January 6th was so awful or whatever else. And many police officers were attacked and some later died. But he didn't talk about the American citizen who died during this.
That's right.
I think that there is this dehumanization of people who are at the Capitol on that day. And I also don't think the persecution of all of these people did the Justice Department and therefore the Biden-Harris administration any favors. I think there are some people that you could argue, weren't supposed to be on the Capitol, something was wrong, but I think Americans got sort of overwhelmed and intimidated by the constant pleading up of all of the charges, the very long sentences, and these were being trotted out by the Justice Department and the mainstream media as these great victories, when actually Americans started to feel like they were about to be persecuted themselves, even those who aren't political or, were nowhere near D.C. on January 6th. There was this they are going to come after you and come after you hard no matter what, and it will be out of your control.
Yeah. Did you see this thing recently, Dallas? Jackson Refit, his dad was a J6er, and Jackson Refit told on his dad and got his dad arrested. And now there's an off-Broadway play called Fatherland, which is the cringiest of all cringe things, between the kid and the dad, and but Dad, you're an insurrectionist. Well, I don't care, son. I got my guns. It's so bad. And it started in LA. That's where it premiered.
We got another story in this vein. Check this out. From the Post-Millennial, MSNBC writer-producer admits network has made their viewers dumber, is indistinguishable from Democrat Party, OMG reports. They are just way too cozy with Democratic politicians, MSNBC producer Basil Hamden said. So James O'Keefe, undercover, he gets the guy on the record. Here we go.
So do you feel like MSNBC is doing enough to help the Harris campaign?
I mean, they're doing all they can.
Meet Basil Hamden, a writer and producer for MSNBC's weekend show, Iman. Basil also reveals that, quote, what her message of the day is their MSNBC's message of the day.
What have they done to help the Harris campaign?
Amplify her message.
Wow.
What her message of the day is their message of the day.
Hamden revealed that MSNBC is the Democratic Party's mouthpiece and is doing anything to get Kamala elected. Hamden says this news network is indistinguishable from the Democratic Party.
So is MSNBC just doing whatever it takes to get Kamala elected?
Yes. It hammers home the point that I'm making, that this news network is indistinguishable from the party.
Are they just the Democratic Party's mouthpiece?
Exactly.
MSNBC is the Democratic Party's mouthpiece.
Yeah.
I got to hand it to these people who don't find it odd they're being asked these questions over again in weird ways. It's like, yes, of course.
They're so happy to be on a date.
If I was on a date and somebody was, which is very rare occurrence. If I was on, somebody was asking me so at the Post-Millennial, do you talk to the publisher very often? And I'd be like, you don't want to talk about books? What's your favorite book?
Do you get
I like Star Wars
from the Trump campaign specifically? Does the
What
Trump
are you talking
personally
about?
message you and tell you what to say?
I'd be like, okay.
But you do.
Could I order an appetizer, please?
It is.
I'll take the Brussels sprouts.
Real quick question. How many of the videos produced by James have been women spilling the beans?
Yeah, not that many. Women are a little smarter than this.
No. I don't think that either
that or they would spill it in a different way.
I think that guys are trying to, I don't know, pitch woo, I guess. And the joke we often bring up is why do these guys think it's impressive to explain the malfeasance they're involved in? A beautiful woman says, so tell me about the evil and things that your company is doing. Well, let me tell you about this corporate malfeasance I'm involved in.
Well, that was remember that movie Wag the Dog that was so great? Yeah. And there's a moment in it when Robert De Niro says, whoever's sleeping with that guy at the Post, you tell him this. And you see one girl in the background being like, it's not me.
I think what's interesting is, we were talking earlier about the mansplaining horror that they were getting into, but this guy is excited that she is reciting back to him what he's saying. She's she must be really good at this. She's so you're telling me that the Democrats just give the message to MSNBC. He's like, yes, that's exactly it. Like, he is so happy that she's so engaged with what he's talking about that he's just going to continue down this path no matter what. It's about his ego, which is fascinating.
I wonder if, like, between the cuts, she says things like, "This is a really amazing wine selection. Do you know a lot about wine?" You know?
Oh, man, the dude
your
locked
eyes
his,
look amazing.
He locked his
He
account.
sure did.
Yeah.
The thing is,
He got.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, first of all, protect James O'Keefe at all costs.
100%.
Right? I mean, he's amazing. I think the fact that these videos aren't in the mainstream and picked up by the mainstream is proof. If anyone needed it, obviously, you can't hate the mainstream media more than you already do, any less than you already do. But this is proof that they don't care. And
they're all probably doing it, right?
Yeah,
because theoretically, if you are ABC News, right, which I actually think is deeper in the pocket of the Biden administration than MSNBC is, but, you know, you would run this story being like, look how unreliable my competitor is. They're only taking political talking points. We would never do that. But actually, they're all doing it, so they can't talk about it at all.
That's funny.
And it's true. Everything that guy said is true. And he means it, and he's seen it, and he's participated in it.
And he'll do it again tomorrow.
He'll do it again tomorrow.
And he's happy she's understanding.
Isn't it wild that Tucker Carlson was on MSNBC? I saw an old clip where he was talking about birth rates and migration on MSNBC with his old bow tie. MSNBC did not used to be this weird fringe leftist elitist garbage.
I wonder
Certainly had some of it.
I wonder what happened. I wonder, like, what the turning point was. Was it slowly or all at once? Probably
It was
slowly,
Donald
then
Trump.
all at once.
You know, CNN, even in the beginning of the Trump years, did not lose their minds until a year or so in. And I talk about this, how a story I've told over and over again, where I used to have CNN running 24/7. I'd be working on I don't do any of it now, but I'd be sitting at the computer reading the news, and I'd have the news playing next to me in case something breaking happened that I missed. I wanted those sources until one day I'm sitting there, and then all I hear is them having talking about Trump. And then I look at the TV, I might have a projector screen, and I was just like, they're doing a round table about Trump. I need the news. And then I saw on Twitter, Iran was erupting in mass protests, and I was like, well, what am I changed the channel to Fox News, and they were covering it. And I never turned CNN back on.
Well, when Barack Obama got elected in 2008, Saturday Night Live and it stopped being funny, and Hollywood stopped making comedies, right? I mean, think about it. Like Step Brothers, The Hangover, all those were made right before he was elected and then released. Some of them were released afterwards. And you can make a case for this movie or that movie, but not really, right? You really get 2016 Ghostbusters, right?
Oh.
And that's what's funny in a sort of post Obama age. But NBC is obviously the home of SNL. SNL, Lorne Michaels, and those cats decided they were not going to mock Barack Obama, that he wasn't, that he couldn't be made fun of. And so it's 2008, 2010. You start to see NBC really do the shift, and then yes, of course, CNN was in the Trump years.
Well, they saw the money.
Yeah,
and they were like, our ratings are up when we complain about Trump, right? But here's the problem: if your audience is, let's say, you got 1 million unique listeners, on any given day, any amount of those unique individuals are going to watch your show, and you're a moderate show. But then one day you go, guys, we did a video where all we did was say Trump is bad, and they got 1 million views. We should make more of this. What's actually happening is you're replacing your moderate audience who are getting tired of it and leaving, and the anti-Trump audience comes in. Right. What happens then? When Trump leaves office, you got nothing to talk about. Your anti-Trump audience no longer watches. You've got no audience left. CNN right now, you'll notice this. They're bringing on people. Who is it like? They got Jennings and Gerdusky, I think, who have come on and made some articulate points that were not leftist or liberal. And it's fairly obvious that CNN is desperately trying to bring back real conversations, knowing that they burn themselves to the ground by going full on orange man bad.
Yeah, I think they know, too, that any of these outlets know that in a Trump administration, they're going to get shut out of access because he's kind of petty where it comes to the press for a good reason.
Oh, dude, I mean, he's going to be like, Tim, come on in. We're going to put your podcast in the car. You can do a show any day. And CNN will be left outside. And I'm half kidding. But I do genuinely believe that between all of the top podcasts, even some that are moderately critical of Trump or otherwise, he's going to say, we'll get you guys in. We'll make sure you can do your show. Seamus Coughlin over at Freedom Tunes, good buddy, has this really funny cartoon he put out a couple weeks ago where it might have been last week. Kamala Harris is in bed and it might be Emhoff, or some guys like, we got a great interview for you lined up. It's your best friend from high school, total softball questions, and it's scripted so we control the narrative. And she's like, no, I don't want to do it. And then someone walks into Trump's office and he goes, so we have this interview with, and Trump's like, I'll do it. And he's like, okay, but it's fine. And, okay. He wants it. Can you do it this afternoon? I guess. Okay, let's go live for 3 hours. Like, Trump's attitude is anytime, anywhere, on camera, let's make it happen. And Kamala is, I'm sorry, we're not taking questions right now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right.
A
like
lot.
that knock joke we did.
Exactly. That's what I was making a reference to.
I'm often impressed and surprised in my relationship with Daily Wire that they are constantly letting, Puck and the Toronto Globe and, all these different sort of New York Times, Washington Post, and they let them in and do interviews with us. And we know it's a hit piece, but it's still important to do. And what are you going to do? Run away? Oh, no, I'm not going to do it. No, you lean in and you say what you say and, let them say what they're going to say.
I hope you guys have a whiteboard where you write down, like, he's going to quote this because he's going to be really mad.
Yeah,
and then when the article comes out, you're like, okay,
like
you get 10
game?
points. Yeah. It's like a scorecard for how good you guys are at, like, predicting the hit piece.
Well, I warn people every single day how the mainstream, I should say corporate press, I don't like to say mainstream anymore because we're winning.
Yeah.
You guys just had a top 5 film. I think it was number 3, number 4. Yep. So we'll call that mainstream too, winning. But the corporate press, the establishment elites, They'll say something like this. Let me ask you a question. Dallas, what's your favorite food?
Filet mignon.
Filet mignon. Okay. Well, if I write that Dallas Sonnier likes filet mignon, I don't know how many people are going to get mad about that. I got it. Here's what I'm going to write. When pressed, Dallas gave a grimace and looked at me with a smug face saying, I like filet mignon in the most elitist way I could have ever imagined. Clearly, this is a man who doesn't understand poverty or the working class people. I was appalled. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And all you said was filet mignon. And I agree. I love it too.
I have tons of those articles written about me.
That's what they do. You'll say something like, I'm deeply concerned about Donald Trump's immigration policy because I'm not sure it's the right policy. And they'll say, although he may have expressed some doubts for Trump, he iterated his support for such barbaric policies that we were appalled. And it's like, if they can't quote you, they'll write their emotion.
Sure.
Well, and you have to go find it too. Every time they write these things, you go look it up and you're like, that's not right. Like one of the key examples, I think, is how they talk about, and they still do, they'll write this down, NPR, New York Times. Donald Trump instituted a ban on people coming in from Muslim majority countries. And you look at it and you're like, that's not what the executive order says. The order says that if your country can't properly vet you to the point where you can have a visa that makes us assured that you're not a terrorist, then you can't come in. It just so happens that the countries that don't have a proper vetting process are Muslim majority countries. So it really says something about those countries, not about Trump or the United States.
And whether it's that example or any of the current examples in 2024, why can't the collective we fix that? Why can't we explain to, in debates, certainly Vance did, but in debates, in articles and things like that, why can't we explain the narrative? Is it just too established and therefore there's no point? Or is it that the audience doesn't care and everyone's in their own corners? Do you know what I'm saying?
Do you think it's an attention span thing? Like
possibly.
Muslim ban is much catchier and quicker than countries that cannot screen people and we're trying to prevent terrorism.
Well, and that tweet is going to do better than an explanation tweet.
They can use it to say that he's racist.
Yeah.
Right? And that is the point. The point is, and when you look it up and you say like, okay, they say he's racist, they say he's misogynist, and you start digging into it, they say he's misogynist for appointing Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe. That's misogyny. They say he's racist because of this Muslim ban, which isn't a real thing. So they make stuff up and then use it against him.
I kind of feel like if you go back to 2015 and 16, if the establishment elites in this country treated Donald Trump with respect, and I don't mean being nice to him, I said respecting what he represents, and if they treated his voters with respect,
that's huge.
They may have won.
Yeah, he would have lost, and he would have been back in New York doing real estate.
And he won by only, what was it, like 70,000, 80,000 votes across a few states, which gave him a big electoral college lead. But what I mean to say is, Trump had voters, many of whom never voted before, and the media was lying to them every day, and they went, fake news, fake news. If the media treated Trump's voters with respect and were honest about their approach and what they wanted to do and why they wanted to do it, Trump might not have won. Instead, the elites treat the American populace like garbage. They lie to them. They tell them the economy's fine. You're good. Don't worry about it. Not correct. And we know better. And we're sick of it. And so people said, you know what? Send in Trump. We're just done.
Well, and Hillary Clinton recently doubled down on her basket of deplorables comments.
Well,
because the thing is, they don't just hate Trump. They hate everything he represents, and they hate everyone who votes for him.
It's true, but I'm feeling kind of good, you guys, because I want to give a shout out to The Nation. They wrote this article, after a shaky start, Waltz reveals the fascist behind the curtain.
Nice.
JD Vance, heavens be. How do they describe JD Vance in this? I know they said fascist behind the curtain, but like what?
Dashing, blue-eyed.
No. They say if the mask is allowed to slip, he's just another Benny Johnson or Tim Pool. Oh, shout out, Benny. That's a compliment. Wow. You guys really think JD Vance is like me?
Two of my
If
favorites.
anything, I'm like JD Vance. That dude is great. He's way better at all of this stuff than I am, but I will take the compliment. I'm actually, they're trying to smear Trump supporters. They call it a MAGA grift, whatever you want to call it. But hey, Benny, shout out Benny Johnson and Tim Pool. They're comparing us to JD Vance. Wow.
That's fun.
That's an anti-smear. I guess to them, they live in their world where they hate everybody, but Anyway, let's jump to the...
It makes me laugh because it's like you just picked two names of people that you're scared of and switched them for JD Vance.
Well, they didn't say Hannity.
That's
you know what
true.
I mean?
Yeah. It was only independent media. It was not corporate.
Right.
I don't know why they just chose me and Benny, but I'll take it. I wonder if Benny caught that.
It's a compliment.
I know. Wow. I watched that debate and I was like, man, JD Vance, masterclass. That has got to be the best debate performance I've ever seen. I watched him navigate the pitfalls the media was looking for to ensnare him with false quotes, and he avoided all these traps. He did a great job. But anyway. All
I can think right now is that's the Scooby-Doo moments when they're like pulling the mask off the person and it's like, instead of JD Vance, it's you.
It's Benny. Shout out to Benny Johnson. All right, let's grab this one from the Post-Millennial. White House isn't treating us very good. Trump says he's always worried about safety during rallies as second Butler PA event nears. I think the White House isn't treating us very good. I get crowds that are 10 times bigger than anybody else, 20 times bigger than anybody else, and we're entitled to security. Indeed. The question of his personal safety and that of others in the crowd is even more pressing as he prepares the return to another rally this weekend in Butler, PA, the location where he almost lost his life to would-be assassin Thomas Crook. So that's coming up in 2 days, right?
Saturday, yeah.
Saturday. Holy smokes.
That is soon. Are you going to go?
Oh, man.
Going?
Well,
I'm excited about it.
You are going?
Yeah, I wanted to see it. I mean, I have seen Trump speak a couple different times, but never in the rally setting. Like I've seen him at Turning Point. I've seen him at sort of more private stuff. And I think especially like returning to Butler is so fascinating. I think one of the big crimes that the media committed against Donald Trump this year was the fact that they did not treat his assassination attempt with the gravity that they should have, right? I mean, they had to talk about it, even though they initially tried to be like, oh, he fell down, there was a loud noise, which is disrespectful. They had to talk about it for a little while. The second Kamala Harris announced, they immediately pivoted. And you can argue that, sure, that would have stolen some of the oxygen, but it never should have stolen all of it, right? Someone shot Trump in public in a swing state, and the media said, well, that's enough of that. Maybe we'll mention Iran, maybe not. So I think there is, I'm really curious what the crowd is going to be like. And I felt like it's drivable for me. So I want to go and be on the ground.
I definitely want to go because it's relatively close to us. The problem, however, is security.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when we do events, and especially you guys at Daily Wire, you know all about it.
Oh, yes.
We have security guards. I was just at Rescue the Republic, and Russell Brand had like several guards around him. When RFK Jr. came out, they basically shut the whole event down, and he had like rows of security he had to walk through. I respect that because he's a Kennedy. Mm-hmm. We know all about that. But depending on where I'm at or what we're doing, I have to have security all the same. I don't know that I'd be able to navigate that massive kind of event. Unless I could probably reach out to somebody and see if there's like, we could get in early and they could walk us to somewhere secure to watch the rally from or something. But I want to go so bad. Yeah. So I'm gonna dig into that and see what we can do.
I'm really happy that, he is returning in October. I think that there is something really powerful about that messaging. And I think this is the kind of resiliency that Americans want to see in themselves, right? I mean, we've been talking a lot about the disaster, the impact of the hurricane. And I think there are, a lot of really terrible, tragic stories, but the stories that Americans want to rally around and want to give to one another are stories of resiliency. And, I don't feel that from Kamala Harris, who seems to avoid any kind of direct confrontation. I don't feel that way about Tim Walz, who says I misspoke when actually he just lied to you. But I think I see that. We see that in Hillbilly Elegy in J.D. Vance's story, and we definitely see that in Donald Trump. We see it in a lot of ways, but I think returning to the scene of the crime, the scene of this terrible thing, even when he knows that, it's not like this was the only attempted assassination this year. I just think these are big moments, and if you can be there, it would be cool.
I'm a little worried because even if he has the current levels of protection from the Secret Service, I think he needs more than that. I'm surprised that the campaign has not spent more on additional security, personal, private security. I mean, at the Daily Wire, I could have made 3 or 4 more movies each year with the amount of money they spend on private security. And it's so important. I mean, I've received at least 2 major death threats before, and they're real scary. And they get to you. They shake you up.
I've been asked a lot about this. Russell Brand, we see him at the event. Very nice guy, super cool. He's got security guards walking around the whole time. Everywhere he goes, there's 4 guards around him. And I've had people ask, does Russell Brand really need security? Come on. And I'm like, you people don't realize it's not even if it's targeted. There could be a crazy person who just thinks, wow, I could get on TV if I'm the one who shoves him or hits him or whatever. And that's why you need security. One of the reasons I stopped doing on the ground reporting and started shifting into more of the podcasting in the newsroom kind of stuff was because it got to the point where random people would show up and run into front of the camera and advertise things.
Oh, how annoying.
Yeah, they knew that I'm getting millions of views doing a live stream covering an event, or that, in the immediate, it's like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. And then over the long run, it might be 500,000 to 1 million plus views. Some of them were massive. Some of them got picked up on TV. So they'd run up and they'd not necessarily advertise, but they'd be like, I'm going to shout out this, shout out that, like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, bro, get out of my camera. And then they'd chase me around. Legit had a guy in Portland chase me through the whole event just trying to get on camera.
That's wild.
You need a security guard.
That reminds me.
And then you can't do it. You can't do it.
Katie Davis Court was out in, where was she? She was in Seattle. And she was walking down the street and she saw Pramila Jayapal, who had 2 security guards. But that wasn't enough because Katie ran up to her, Pramila, like asked her a bunch of questions.
Great. But, I mean, that's fine, right? The security guards are there to make sure that no one stabs you.
No, Katie wasn't.
But if somebody comes up and says, hey, man, I'm a big fan, it's cool. Like, yeah, there's no issues. But that's why you need security guards, because what if the person running up saying Pramila actually was a psychopath foaming at the mouth?
Instead of just a reporter.
And out of the millions of people that know who you are, it takes one crazy person.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Russell Brand certainly needs security. I spent almost a decade as Stone Cold Steve Austin's manager and movie producer, and so I traveled all over the world with him.
Yeah, but he could beat people up.
Well, but the problem is everyone wants to shake his hand, everyone wants to arm wrestle him, everyone wants to do a push-up test with him, and the thing, I traveled once. It was a great opportunity. I traveled once to Macau, which is the Las Vegas of China, with Christian Bale and Bryce Dallas Howard and the cast of Terminator Salvation. Okay,
this is an amazing story.
And Christian, of course, is a very thoughtful person, and he said something really savvy. As we were walking through the airport, we had the Gavin DeBecker security team there, and they were taking us to the plane and things like that. And we flew commercial, but he said, when I walk through an airport, I don't know anybody, and they all know me, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. They know, and they've seen him in movies, and they've seen him in interviews, so they think that they know him enough to approach, right? And this happens to a lot of celebrities, and I thought that was a fascinating insight.
Yeah. Well, this must happen to you all the time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, usually I meet people, I get fist bump, and they're like, hey, man, I'm a big fan. I shake their hands. I say, thank you so much, because I met some people recently at Rescue the Republic, and they were like, we appreciate what you do. And I was like, I appreciate what you guys do, because if you didn't watch, I wouldn't be doing anything. So it's reciprocal, right? But I'm pretty sure this is how Houdini died, right? Someone punched him in the gut.
No, really?
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah, famously, Houdini had the iron gut or whatever, and he would tighten his abs and get ready and challenge people to strike him. And then apparently someone, this is the truth, right? This is the story. Somebody saw him and said, I can punch him, and went up without him knowing and just boom, as hard as he could, and killed him.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
That's awful.
Yeah, and it's actually, when you mentioned Christian Bale, it's a great movie, The Prestige, which I'm sure you've seen.
Best.
And there's a point being made where he says, what do we do a bullet catch? And it's like, all it takes is some guy to slip a real bullet in there, and then it's over. And that's why you can't do it. It's an old movie, so sure enough, yes, Hugh Jackman slips a real bullet in and then shoots him in the hand. So crazy people do crazy things.
Like the guy who killed John Lennon.
Yeah.
He's like a crazed fan. Or like the guy who, like, what?
Or was he?
I don't know. But then you had the guy who, like, took a video of himself. That was awful. And, like, sent it to Bjork. And it was like him trying to kill himself on video and send it to Bjork. Terrible. Really terrifying.
There are people who just don't know how to matter, and they want to matter. And so this is why you get dangerous, crazy people who harm others. Not all the time, but a component of it. And that's why they say, don't say the names of school shooters and things like that, because they were trying to get noticed in the worst way possible.
Well, there was a girl in the UK who recently stabbed up a bunch of her classmates and a teacher and said that's one way to become a celebrity.
Yeah, Daily Wire,
famous.
Daily Wire has had a long-standing rule, even today, that they don't ever name the shooter or so on.
So all the Trump assassination attempter stories, they don't have the guy's name in it?
That's my understanding.
Interesting.
I do think there's a slight difference, at least as far as I would go with editorial policy on the assassinations. I try to avoid...
It may be different on that one.
Yeah, it would be difficult to report on Ryan Routh right now without using his name because he's...
I think we're talking about the school shootings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
These are people who think to themselves, I will get put in the history books if I do this. And my response is never. Don't let them do that.
Yeah, it's kids getting killed and sad.
Nah. Yeah. The only thing is we're going to call you stupid duty poo-poo face. That'll be your name if you want. If you go out in these ways. We're not going to say your name. We're going to say, we're going to insult you.
Yes.
And you might find yourself in the history books, but your picture will be next to a steaming pile of crap, dog crap or something. As for the people going after Trump, they're doing it for political reasons, not necessarily recognition, although that may be a component. So that is a scary thing. And I'm just hoping Trump, Biden, Kamala, everybody stays safe. I really am just crossing my fingers and hoping every day that the election is a bit shocking, because I'll give it that, but ultimately ends up mundane. No January 6th, none of that stuff.
Weird.
Maybe it takes 3 days to count the votes, but then they say, look, guys, here it goes. And then everyone just gets angry and grumbles, and then we move on. Whatever it may be, we keep the fight in the political arena. We keep it legal. We keep it in the realm of law and activism and culture building. I hope that's what happens. I'm not so confident, though. I'm pretty worried. But I am saying that in the... I don't understand how Kamala Harris wins. I just don't. I mean, literally shadow campaign, that I understand. I'm just saying right now, with the unions back, like Trump's union support is through the roof, the Teamsters, the state of the economy, a hurricane disaster. I know the port strikers is wrapping up and they're going to renegotiate in January or whatever and figure out what they can do. But you've got war in the Middle East breaking out. I mean, this is a catastrophically bad month for the Democrats. So by any sense of the imagination, based on the merits, they should not be able to win. But, we're in strange times. How about that?
I think that it's going to come down to 20,000 people in Pennsylvania.
And that's why I will be up there October 13th with Jack and Scott Pressler because, I don't want to say too much, but I was having some conversations with top men. And they were just saying that, and this is before I decided to do anything, they were just like, if we lose PA, that's it.
It's over.
Democrats take the election.
Right. That's right.
And so I'm hearing that a lot of very high-profile, prominent people are making moves into Pennsylvania to encourage voter registration, and that's it.
I love all of the enthusiasm that he's going into blue states and feels like everything is really good and he's confident. I think that's a great attitude. But it's really hard to believe that Michigan and Wisconsin go his way. I think Nevada and Georgia and Arizona should. I'm nervous about North Carolina because of the destruction of the red counties in the West.
It is concerning.
Which is very, very tough to imagine that doesn't hurt. but I think it comes down to Pennsylvania.
But you know what? The response to the hurricane may actually push people towards Trump in other areas and surrounding areas. I mean, the people who got devastated have family members who are living in surrounding areas too.
Right.
So you might have someone who's moderate and they're getting a crying phone call from their brother-in-law, from their sister, from their uncle, whatever, being like, they're leaving us to rot. You know, my God, we need help here. And they may just be like, Kamala betrayed my family. So this hurricane is a catastrophe for them, especially because they spent so much money on illegal immigrants, and they're like, we're going to spend the money we have. And it's like, listen, make the argument, fact checkers. The 750 cap was always there. They're spending everything they can. And then go to your working class average person devastated by the disaster and say, this is as much money as you get based on the cap. And they're going to say to you, how come you're giving Ukraine hundreds of billions? And you're going to say, well, that's something totally different. No, it's not. You could sign a bill right now sending that $100 billion to us, and we could rebuild our house overnight. And we all know it. And I doubt if members of Congress today said, here is the reallocating Ukraine war funds to the victims of Hurricane Helene bill, or Hurricane Helene Act, everyone in this country would be like, yeah, right. As much as many people may support Ukraine and really despise what Putin did and the war and all of that stuff, America comes first. We can't generate the revenue required to help anybody around the world anywhere if we have our people devastated and unable to live. I think most people would agree with that. So that ultimately the argument comes down to, we know they could do more, and they're not. Mm-hmm. So no matter what they do, it's not going to work out well for them. That being said, let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with everyone you know, because this show is the best show. Everyone agrees. At least that's what I've been told. And I've got chats here saying it. We love you, Tim. Your show is great. That proves it. It takes only one comment. Actually, I made that up. Nobody was saying that. Someone did say Tim is right and a 20 for Tim. So I will accept that as your endorsement. And I appreciate you guys watching the show. I also would like to just point out that I don't know how often this happens, but we're featured on the front page of YouTube Live, #1. And so I got screenshots of you guys so I can be like, hey, here you go. It's a picture of you on the default player. It's kind of crazy to see.
That's fun.
Yeah, I was like, I love YouTube now. What? Hey, I'll take it.
That's what they want. They want to lull you into a sense of trust.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying the other day. It may be like, hey, if Tim Pool sees that he's featured on the front page, he may, come back in our direction, scared to lose it. Now, I'm going to say what I think and what I want to say, and I'll say that every day. But hey, I think it's really fantastic they featured us. This morning, my morning show was featured #2.
Nice.
I know. Crazy. I'll take it. Wow.
When was the last time that happened? Because you weren't always as kind of ranked as you are now, right?
Well, I don't know exactly what's going on other than people keep saying that they get unsubscribed and weird things happen. They can't find the show. We've had some pretty weird nights where our live count kept getting shut down. And I wonder if it's a mentality of if you can't beat them, join them. And what I do know is, because I've known people at Google for a long time, and I hear it everywhere. It's the same inside as it is on the outside. That there are people at Google, and it's overwhelmingly woke, and they hire their friends, and then the people who are moderate and conservative shut their mouths, and so you don't ever actually see this coming from the company because they're scared to lose their jobs. I wonder if the tides there are turning. People are starting to speak up. Someone at Google might have went and said, guys, how does it make sense that this show consistently has the highest live viewership and it's not featured? And then somebody was like, because he's a fascist? No, we can't. That's ridiculous.
Oh, it definitely happened. Of course it did.
Do you think that conversation is...
Absolutely.
Why are we losing money for this? Well, yeah. I heard Kevin Feige went and fired a bunch of activists. Have you heard this?
Yes.
That's true?
Yeah. He had a head of production who was a far leftist woman, and she was basically making sure that her values were inserted into the movies, and it became a huge problem.
They were bombing,
and they were bombing, and she left, and she was burning the building as she walked out the door, and it was a real problem. But they got rid of her.
I've known people at Google for a long time. And I've had people tell me that there's a lot of people at Google who watch every single night and they love the show. So shout out if that's you, because I know you guys are there. I wonder if they just finally started saying, actually, I'm a big fan of that show. I watch it all the time. It's not that bad. And then somebody was like, oh. And they're like, yeah, keeping them off the feature makes no sense if they're consistently for 4 years. Every night the show is there and it's popular. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But I started getting, I got messages the other day. People were mentioning, I saw you featured on Live. And I was like, maybe it's a new thing they're doing and that's why it's happening. Or maybe they finally decided to put us up there. I don't know. But let's grab your super chats. Enough about me. It's about you guys. Man of History says we must sell coffee in Houston. We are very close to our offerings for the Timcast, the Cast Brew locations. And although we have been jammed up on our historical building opening, it's looking like, and I can't say too much, I don't know, they're going to get mad at me. I'm going to get yelled at by somebody after I say this, but I would love it if we had, like 30 stores open up across the country with like a Foundation Series plaque kind of thing, like they do with Cybertruck. So the first stores that open up, like Cast Brew coffee shops all over the country. So we're excited for that. And I know we have a ton of people who follow the show and watch the show who are like, we are ready to do this, to open locations, and it is coming soon.
I'd like to put in a request. Iced coffee is not cold brew.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Iced coffee is way better than cold brew. Cold brew
yes,
sucks.
It is.
Really?
Wow,
Cold brew sucks.
you've got some really intense one-liners tonight.
No. Iced coffee is the best.
It's so great.
Cold brew is not iced coffee.
It's the worst.
Agreed.
Yes.
But I like cold brew.
I don't like it.
No.
I think it's bitter. I like iced coffee in the summertime.
They are very different.
So I brew coffee and I put it in the fridge and then I pour it over coffee flavored ice cubes that I
Whipped cream
very smart.
that you have whipped yourself.
I also have I also
look
do
forward
whip
to the
my
Cast
own
Brew
cream.
iced coffee.
Yeah.
All right, let's grab the super chat from Tempest 83. Says, is this why the response to East Palestine and Maui were so miserable? I think the response to Maui was miserable because it gave powerful people the ability to start buying up property on pennies on the dollar. So
there were some reports that in North Carolina, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there were some reports in North Carolina that people are not going to be allowed to move back into their land at all.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Casey Willis says, today is my 40th birthday. Been listening to you guys since episode 1. Just wanted to say thank you all. Love what you guys do and keep on keeping on. I really do appreciate it. We are in episode, I believe it's 1123. Wow.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. All right. Riding with Ryan says, what's up, my brother from another mother? I listen to my music via YouTube and not iTunes. So you know what I did? Bought Coming Home on iTunes because the work you do is amazing. Love y'all. God bless. Really do appreciate it. We've been getting a lot of feedback from people saying that they were trying to get iTunes to buy the song and they were having problems with the app. If that is you, or if you hate Apple, getcominghome.com will send you now to Amazon, where it's very easy to click and buy that song. The issue is, Dallas, we've been producing a bunch of music.
Yeah.
The first time we made a song, we sent out a press release. Tim Pool and Pete Parada, formerly of The Offspring, have made the song. The song was a love song. That was all it was. It was not political in any way. The response we got back from the entertainment industry, big magazines and newspapers and websites, F you, ha ha ha, LOL, screw you, blah blah blah. It was the least professional thing I've ever seen. I can't believe that's what was happening. So we actually were able to chart across the board because we were getting streams and sales. One day, we release a song and they come back to us and say, oh, actually, we don't count these sales anymore. And we were like, okay, what do we have to do? You got to use certified sellers like iTunes, Amazon, or insert a few other websites. So then we did this with the Daily Wire Together Again, which you got, all about.
Yep.
It was our biggest release ever. My understanding is we sold 35,000 copies in the first week. We had something like 10 million streams. It was massive. And then we were told that the certified reseller we used no longer counted towards the tracking for Billboard. And we had been told all the way up until the campaign, because I called Jeremy over the Daily Wire and I said, let's stick it to the music industry. That's what he and Michael Knowles had done and you guys had done. And then they told us it didn't count. So now we release another song, Coming Home, and it's about the decay of our cities and the failure of our leaders. And we're basically being told the only thing that will count in sales is iTunes. And iTunes is really difficult to download and use. They're trying to shift everything to streaming, Apple Music. Why? With streaming platforms, there will never be an independent artist succeeding again.
Right.
Sales can be generated by someone with a large fan base. And so if you are Tom McDonald, for instance, well, Tom should be on the Hot 100 every song he puts out. He's getting millions of views. He's selling albums. They told him his album sales don't count. Now,
what the hell?
It's rigged. And so we said, okay, everybody.
It's rigged.
It's rigged. Buy it on iTunes, Coming Home by Timcast, 99 cents. But that means you have to download the iTunes program, not app, the program on your computer, and literally iTunes, not Apple Music, and then buy the song. We were told that that Amazon may or may not count. So now third-party resellers are saying don't count anymore. Amazon might sometimes, and only iTunes does.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's because it does when you imagine that they want to control the narrative and they don't want celebrity artists to come out and say vote Trump. Maybe that's the game. I don't know. But let's read some more super chats.
Well, I downloaded it onto my iTunes. I bought it.
iTunes.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys buy it on Amazon, by all accounts, it's supposed to count as well. But how insane is it that they're saying the only sales that count these days will be iTunes and Amazon? It used to be, because this is what happened with Tom. He made albums, physical albums. He sold them. He counted the UPC codes and he submitted it and they said no. It's like, what? That's album
garbage.
Sales. It's rigged.
They figured out a couple of years ago that an average user would buy $70 in music each year, but they would, if they streamed it and paid the $12 a month, it would be $144 a year.
But
so they doubled.
It also means that when a record label or a powerful interest wants to make sure that certain ideas are not prominent in music, they can go to what's called the DSPs and say, we want these to be the rotation. It's been that way with radio for a long time.
But this is a little more insidious.
When they get rid of sales and they say we're not going to count it anymore. If you look at the Billboard Hot 100, it's just these are all artists that were put into rotation. To be fair, some of them are because they're famous and they're well known. And so they're like, this will likely do well. Why would I put Tim Pool in our rotation if I know I've got John Rich? John Rich is going to do way better. And shout out to John Rich. He rocks. So that's true too. But by eliminating the ability to generate sales, they're basically saying it is only ever going to be record label deals with streaming platforms to determine who actually will get plays in the music industry. If you are not fitting in, and that means maybe they want you on stage saying Trump is evil, Project 2025, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys got in 1,500 theaters plus.
Yeah.
Am I Racist was selling, and it looks like they were trying to stop you.
Yeah, it was the left is getting smarter, especially when it comes to the movie world, that if they ignore the movie, right, they don't get attacked, right? They don't. And so they tried to ignore it. The critics ignored it. The people who are featured in the movie, featured is a funny word, ignored it, right? Robin DiAngelo finally did put out a statement, which was great, and we framed it. But they're getting smarter, right? If you look at the college campuses at Cal Berkeley, those kids are professional activists. They don't bother to come and protest Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh on campus anymore. Mm-hmm. So it is getting interesting. The game is getting smarter and savvier. The one thing, though, is the genius of the release is that the communal experience of a theatrical viewing. Everybody who sees the world a certain way got together, sat in that movie theater with their popcorn, and got to enjoy a great comedy, which, it's been a while. It's been a while since there was a great comedy. And so that was the genius of the release of Am I Racist, which was get everyone together, get in a theater, laugh, have fun, and just enjoy yourselves. And communally exhale. Because we've all suffered under this DEI bullshit for so long that it's just exhausting. And so we have to finally just say enough. And
Let's
that's what this was.
Let's grab some more super chats. We got Tyrant Gods who says, power is back. I can properly water my chickens and pig now. I feel for those still affected. I was angered to hear that they're trying to arrest those to fly supplies to those in North Carolina. Indeed. And sometimes there's an argument of like, hey, don't drive your truck over this area because you're going to sink and cause more problems. A lot of people might try and go in not realizing the mud that's there. But it is despicable. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to arrest you, how about they just go, can we coordinate with you to get these supplies in? I think it's silly. The idea that the government locks everything down so people can't get help is nuts. Tornado Sponge Productions says, Helene absolutely devastated many communities my cousins live in. It was insane just hearing that my dad had to play messenger since they couldn't communicate with each other nearby, but far out. Wow, that's crazy. Brutal stuff, man. I am. That stuff makes me angry. Binary Evasion says, my area in Georgia was out of power for a week. Generators cost $850. The $750 will help slightly for food, but it will go bad without power. And what about the people who lost everything? Their vehicles are buried. Their homes were destroyed. Ridiculous. Manipple says, how did you get your movie into so many theaters? Did you call each one? How much did it cost?
Well, Jeremy, at Daily Wire said, let's put this movie in theaters. Obviously, Matt Walsh and Justin Folk, the director, were pushing for a theatrical release as well. And we have this executive over at Daily Wire named Dave Coleman. And he just put the entire movie and the theatrical release on his shoulders. And he met with all these different companies. We ended up partnering with Chuck and Carrie, who are the filmmakers behind Unplanned and all these different movies. And they started a distribution company called SDG Releasing, basically for this movie and these kinds of movies. And so it wasn't necessarily that Daily Wire had to do it themselves, but we did partner with people who were like-minded and who knew the game and knew the theaters. They had a hit recently with Nefarious, which was a movie I quite liked. And they did great, and they got it in all the theaters. Now, obviously, the theaters are hurting badly right now, but it was a great opportunity, a great sort of moment, and it all worked out. And the movie's crossed $11 million in theaters. It's the #1 documentary of the year, and it's about to be the #1 documentary of the 2020s.
It's the biggest since Fahrenheit 9/11, right?
It's up there.
Oh.
It's interesting to hear you talk about the infrastructure that is cropping up alongside these efforts that are sort of outside bigger productions, right? Like we used to have people call in and say, like, I'm a sound guy. I want to work on movies. Like, how do I work with movies that align with my values or my interests even? I don't want to work on this. And so it is interesting to see that kind of develop. I was wondering if you could tell us how far along Am I Racist was when you got involved with the project. Like, was it just a concept? I know as a producer, you kind of have a different role.
Well, everything is a little unique at Daily Wire because we have a small team. I mean, it's a big team, but it's a small team compared to Hollywood. So I got involved in What is a Woman, got to know Matt and Justin Folk really well. It was a great experience. Obviously, we had to do it again, right? So we got everyone in a room together. We brought in some like-minded comedians and writers and people like that. We did this blue sky meeting. We started to talk about different ideas. Matt was giving us a lot of input on where he wanted to go and what his directions were. And we started literally just workshopping scenes in the room. We came up with the title in that first meeting and so on and so forth. And then from there, a set of meetings which we call the green light meetings, right? So you have to put together a treatment, a budget, you have to put together a plan, a schedule, things like that. Get the movie greenlit. At Daily Wire, it's Jeremy and Caleb, this co-CEO, and a few others. And just, it's a very small team. So they knew that they were excited about this. Then Jeremy and I went and made Lady Ballers and Pendragon. So while Matt and Justin were running around the country making Air,
wearing wigs,
yes. So I was involved in the scene where the wigs, and there's hopefully we'll get a deleted scene one day where he also dressed up like Post Malone, Abraham Lincoln, and several other very funny ideas. And that didn't ultimately make the final cut, but it is hilarious. And you just work. Sort of you add value any way you can. And so, we were encouraging them from expensive restaurants in Rome.
Nice. So let me just read a couple things. And correct me if any of this is wrong, but it's the top opening for a political documentary in 20 years. It's the highest grossing documentary film of 2024. Top 5 political documentary in the past decade. It's grossed $11,301,238. Yes. And it is the 5,144th all-time domestic box office. Now, I got to say, for all movies ever released in theaters, like, wow.
Right.
5,000 ain't nothing.
It's amazing.
But and it's a documentary. So,
yeah.
Man, accolades. And it was so well done. I'm really excited for what you guys pull off next. Let's grab this from KCB. Just found out the SBA turned me over to the Fed for collection on a C-19 relief loan. I was told it was forgiven. Now I have 6 months to come up with $140,000. This may be the end of my 24-year-old company, but illegal immigrants get money to buy houses. I give up. Man, dude, I'm sorry to hear it.
Ooh.
Sometimes it's like it's on purpose. How could you conclude anything else?
Yeah, that's very rude that they're not forgiving the loan. Those are supposed to be forgiven loans.
You know what? I got to say, we have a tradition here at Timcast. Trey the Small says, howdy, folks. My wife and I are watching from the hospital, awaiting our third child. Love the new song. Tim, keep 'em coming. People super chat all the time from the hospital where their children are being delivered.
I think people
keep
hang
the
out
trend
during-
up.
Also, 3, that means you're above replacement rate. So good job.
Congrats.
done it.
Congrats, everyone.
You know, we have to do some kind of like free membership if you super chat with, you know, your child being delivered or whatever. It's like you've proven that you're having kids, you know, free members or something. But shout out. Also, we may actually have a song coming out for Halloween.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because we actually finished a song a long time ago, but shifted production to Coming Home because it matters a lot more. So we have 99%. This other song that's done like 99%, and it's a more of a tongue-in-cheek, silly song, probably more similar to the song "Genocide" we put out. And if we can get the music video done in time, it probably will be out by Halloween.
Oh, that's fun.
It'll be fun. Alex Robertson says, "Congrats on 2 million subs. Bought the song on Amazon, and I'm a Timcast member. You rock, dude. You're a beacon in the dark. Appreciate you and the team." Well, I appreciate you guys. Because like I said, you know, I had people meeting me on the street saying, "We love what you do." And I'm like, I love what you do. You're members and you watch. What would I be doing in an alley waving a sign saying the end is nigh? Well, man, could you imagine me on a highway with a Civil War is coming sign?
It was like a shopping cart.
I'd look ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if I'm on a podcast with 1 million viewers, now I'm respectable. That's the difference.
You know who I'm talking
Context
about,
is
Dallas.
everything.
The shopping cart
Oh, yeah,
people,
of
Central
course.
Park. Of course.
Context.
The end is nigh. Repent.
Hoplite Industries says, Tim, please cover the story of what Shopify are doing to small and conservative businesses. They are forcing us to ship products without payment, causing massive damages, and are threatening to shut us down if we don't comply. Fight, fight, fight.
Bad news.
I've heard something about that. That's crazy. I don't know enough, though. I don't know
Whenever
enough.
I buy anything, they take my money first. It's like the first
Yeah.
thing that happens is they take my money.
RDC says, I love whipping my own cream.
It's very good.
It is. And then you dip strawberries in it.
That's delicious.
It's so good. And for those that don't know, strawberries and whipped cream is actually keto.
Is it?
Yeah, I believe one strawberry on average is about a half carb, and it's
How about
largely
that?
fiber.
So I
You can
make
actually
these
eat a
little
bunch.
like yogurt sundaes that I have, where it's like, you know, it's like a Greek yogurt with frozen raspberries on top, and then honey and whipped cream.
That's dessert.
Perfect. That's great dessert.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. This is a
Yeah.
dessert.
Absolutely dessert.
It's my favorite dessert.
Am I wrong in thinking that strawberries are also a good source of iron? I could be wrong. I'm not a nutritionist. Don't quote me.
Maybe. I mean, they're red. That's a thing that iron does.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look it up.
I think we should campaign or lobby Post Millennial to give you your own cooking show. Enough of this politics.
Could
Give us a
you
cooking
imagine?
show.
I would have so much fun. Do you
Like,
know
you could
that
talk about the news while you're cooking, but
I
just also like you're making your yogurt
I used to
parfaits.
pretend that I had like a cooking show in my house.
I know a producer.
And I
Wait,
would just
something might be happening.
I would just like be like, okay, so when you live in a tiny apartment in New York and you have everything over here, you know, oh, you're missing tarragon, just use this.
You are halfway to a cooking show. You can be making pizza and talking about
Well,
politics.
I
Come
do
on.
want to learn how to make pasta from scratch. I'm very excited to do that.
It's very
And,
fun.
Yeah, and my next project, if anyone knows, if anyone wants to like message me about this, I don't have a smoker, but I have a giant brisket. And I want to make like Texas style brisket, but I don't, it's no buying stuff October. That's like my new thing. So I can't buy a smoker right now, but I really want to make the brisket.
All right, we got this from Purple
Somebody's gonna message you with this.
Purge
I
Rage.
like it.
He says IRL was on the front YouTube front page tonight. Here. So if you're a subscriber, usually what happens is you go to youtube.com and you'll see it right in the front. That's what they do, and then people watch. But yesterday and today, they have a live player now. So I've opened up YouTube Live before, and usually Timcast IRL is just shown there as like a thumbnail. And then the other day, I opened it up, and I saw a live video player of us featured on the default live page for YouTube, and that was kind of crazy to see.
That's kind of
Huge.
Yeah, we typically have the highest viewership and by large numbers. So you guys who watch every night, man, it is an honor and a privilege to do a show for you guys every single day. You have made my dream come true, and I'm sure many people who work here are eternally grateful for your support in watching the show. And even if you hate me and hate watch and super chat about how much you hate me, I greatly appreciate that you give me your attention because we try hard, and you guys make it possible.
The last time I was here 2.5 years ago, I gave out my email address on the show. I don't know if you remember this. And I got 3,500 emails. Wow. And I answered all of them.
That's amazing.
And I will say, it was a great experience. I met people who ended up on our crew.
Whoa.
I met a guy who I ended up introducing to the editor of Rocky, and now they're making a documentary together.
Sweet.
Lots of stuff, and just really like amazing. Your audience is they're amazing people. It's really an awesome group of people.
Yeah.
And I had a blast getting to know them.
And it's always great when I meet people out. I'm out doing my thing, and then someone. We went to a restaurant nearby, and we were ordering food, and then when we ordered like normal, and then the server walks over, and he's like, "Tim," and I was like, "Yes," and he's like, "Man, I love your show," and I was like, "Dude, I really appreciate it. I always leave big tips."
Yeah.
We had one server, and she was like, "Hey, aren't you a podcast? My husband watches your show." I was like, "You're getting a big tip now." No, I always give all the servers big tips because you have to. You have to.
I don't really
If you
get
can.
recognized, which is not surprising. Tim has worked and been doing this for way longer. But one time someone messaged me on Twitter and was like, "Hello, I actually just wanted to let you know I saw you in the grocery store, and I told my little toddler that like we see you on TV." But I go to the grocery store like looking ugly, and so I almost wanted to message him back like, "How could you say this to me?" I just didn't say anything. It was really nice. The message has always meant something to me.
Yeah.
All right. The Emperor's Champion says Seamus should do a cartoon where you are doing a podcast in the White House with Trump, and the mainstream media are all outside in the rain looking sad and lonely. That is actually a good bit. What the mainstream media fears the most. And then Seamus had a really funny one today where it's a black guy goes to the DMV to get an ID, and it's black Americans getting IDs according to Democrats. And then the one at the DMV is like, no, you can't get your ID here. You have to go through that line. And then it's an arduous journey through like oceans, and he gets washed ashore, and then he has to climb the mountains of climb the volcano in Mount Doom, and he gets rescued by an eagle. And then when he finally makes it there, she's like, "Did you remember form?" I'm ruining the joke, sorry, Seamus, but she's like, "Did you get the form?" And he's like, "I'll go get it," and he has to walk all the way back.
That's great.
Seamus is really great. His videos are so funny. Freedom Tunes for those that don't know. All right, we'll grab one more. What do we got? Trevor says, Trevor Ritzky. Is that it, Ritzky? Not sure if you'll have time to get this, but I am surprised you didn't talk about how much more the criminal aliens have received as compared to our own citizens. $20 million for the hurricane versus $600 million for them, over 30 times the amount. Was the opening segment. We were talking about that. So, indeed, I appreciate you guys bringing it up. All right. Noah Sanders says, Coming Home is number 4 on iTunes. Those are rookie numbers. We got to pump those numbers up to number 1 by the end of this night. Buy Coming Home now. Well, this is it, my friends. As we venture off into the members only show, this is the last opportunity because at midnight tonight, they close tracking, and we will see if Coming Home was worthy of your attention. If you would like to support music that I think matters, if you agree with me that it matters, and it should matter, getcominghome.com. For those that can't get iTunes, iTunes is the most effective way to buy the song. If you go on iTunes and you buy it for 99 cents, that means you have to download the program or whatever. Apple Music is not iTunes. 99 cents. You will be helping us out in sending a message that people care about music. They care enough to buy it. They care enough about the message. But if you can't because you don't like iTunes, Amazon is still available, getcominghome.com. And if everybody who watched this show right now, not tomorrow because tracking's closed, but right now bought it, we would hit the charts massively and send a message. So it would greatly support us, and I would really appreciate it. You can also be a member at timcast.com because that members only show will be starting in a minute. You can follow me at Timcast on X and Instagram. We also streamed on X for everybody who's watching there. But also don't forget to smash the like button. If you're listening on the podcast, on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, give us a good rating because we've never asked before, and apparently it really matters. And that may be why, our audio side doesn't do as well, so give us a good rating, support the show. Dallas, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, I want to.
Oh my God!
I want to give you a gift. This is the Am I Racist board game, card game.
I am so jealous.
Goodness, that's so great.
And basically, you pull a card, and it has a stereotype in there.
Let's play it tonight.
And
Let's play it in the
of course.
Oh, yes, let's do that. Yay.
And then you have to debate if you're
this is-
racist or not.
Oh, I totally want to play this.
For those
Can
that
we play it?
for those that are calling in as members, we'll ask you questions too.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is available only in the Daily Wire store, and it's phenomenal.
Take a look. Am I Racist board game?
Wow, and the members only show just got lit.
This is going to get offensive, isn't it?
Oh yes.
I hope
Can't
it does.
wait.
All
Yeah.
right, right on.
Oh, it's my turn. I'm stoked for the members only show now. I'm Libby Emmons. I'm with the Post Millennial, and humanevents.com. And you can check out my newsletter if you want to hear from me every day. I actually just start the day writing it, and it's nice because I start writing. And it's, what is it? thepostmillennial.com/Libby. That's what it is. You can sign up.
I heard tomorrow she's going to release her iced coffee recipe, so definitely stay tuned for that.
Now I actually will do that.
Great. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I co-host here at Timcast IRL. I'm really grateful for all of your support. It's definitely, to me, the backbone of everything we do here. It's been so fun to have you, Dallas. It was fun to talk about Dallas City as well. If you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. I'm on Twitter at hannahclaireb. Again, thanks so much. Have a great night.
Thank you all so much for hanging out. Smash the like button on the way out, and we will see you all over at timcast.com in about 1 minute.